We are now.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Flagstaff City Council. This is a combined work session special meeting. Today is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2020. I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order and provide notice that the Flagstaff City Council has the ability to recess into executive session for legal advice should we so choose to do so. With that, can we have roll call? Actually, with that, we'll go ahead and have the pledge, and we're going to have Miss Salas lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Salas. Ms. Whelan, can you please read our mission statement?
The mission of the City of Flagstaff is to protect and enhance the quality of life for all.
Thank you. We are down to roll call.
Mayor Evans.
Present.
Vice Mayor Shimoni.
Present.
Councilmember Aslan.
Present.
Councilmember McCarthy.
Here.
Councilmember Odegaard.
Oh, present.
Thank you. Councilmember Salas.
Present, still alive and kicking.
Councilmember Whelan.
Present.
Okay, thank you so much, City Clerk. We are going to go ahead and go down to item number 4. This is public participation. Public participation for items that are not currently on our agenda. While council can listen and receive, per law, we cannot respond to anything that we might hear during public participation. At this time, we do not have any, so we're going to go ahead and move down to item number 5. Item number 5 is the Beautification and Public Art Commission's update.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council members. This is Eliza Kretzman. I am your Beautification Arts and Sciences Manager, here to introduce our chair for the Beautification and Public Art Commission. Anthony Garcia will be presenting to you. He's got deep roots in Flagstaff and has been our chair since 2017. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for the presentation and turn it over to Chair Garcia.
Hello, Madam Mayor Evans, Vice Mayor Shimoni, Honorable Council, City Management, and staff. I'd like to welcome you to the 2020 Beautification and Public Art Commission Annual Update. As Eliza just mentioned, my name is Anthony Garcia, and I am the current Beautification and Public Art Chair. I am here on behalf of the Commission and Vice Chair Sandra Labarsky. Slide number 2. During this presentation, I will be referring to Beautification and Public Art Commission with the acronym BPAC whenever appropriate. Today, I will be using broad strokes to paint a more vivid lifescape of these 4 overarching components of BPAC. You may notice this slide's backdrop as the Centennial mural by Red Wing Nez at the Flagstaff Visitor Center, completed in 2012. Slide number 3. The Commission...
Pardon, Chair Garcia.
Sure.
I think that it's showing the wrong PowerPoint. I'm having some technical difficulties.
No. You want me to just keep rapping?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and pull up the correct one, but it's just giving me some trouble today, of course, of all days.
Do you want me to continue at slide 3, Eliza?
Please do, and I will work on finding out why this is giving me trouble.
Cool. I'll keep you informed on what slide I'm at. The commissioning of public art is often a competitive open process of hiring an artist to do unique site-specific artwork that covers design, fabrication, and installation. The BPAC adds texture to this landscape by garnering robust community input for participatory public outputs throughout this process. Although BPAC funding is derived from a convenience tax primarily paid for by tourism, the Commission feels strongly that its benefit be funneled back into the community to complement Flagstaff's authenticity, viscerality, and natural aesthetic of our surroundings. You can see in this slide the children's garden featured in the backdrop. Slide number 4. Last year at this time, we were welcoming our then new Beautification Arts and Science Manager, Eliza Kretzman, who has served our community and commission well, adding depth and gravitas to the team. Janet Weldon, our new Beautification Arts and Science Administrator, has prioritized community collaboration by adding a community component to the artist selection process. We appreciate her commitment to the community. Erin Kazmarowski, our most recent addition, comes to us via a partnership with AmeriCorps. As a VISTA member, she has added her youthful zeal to the team. Slide 5. Now,
Chair Garcia, are you seeing my slides now?
No. Let me see. Oh yeah, I am actually.
Liza, we're seeing the slides, but you're not quite in sync. I'm not sure if you're in sync with where the presenter is at this point, but we are seeing the slides.
Great. So we are in general updates. I believe that's where Anthony is as well.
I think we'll be moving one more up, Eliza. Oh, cool.
Eliza, you had it right. You're at general updates. You're fine.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Now here is what we, as a committee, have been recently accomplishing through public art at the City of Flagstaff. This mural was donated by Isaac Caruso to the Boys and Girls Club and finished this summer. Promoting partnerships and cultivating collaboration is a thematic undercurrent within the BPAC. I know Adam has heard of multimodal transportation. Well, this mural is a form of multimodal artwork where poetry meets the mural. Slide 6. And here I'm at the stonemason. Basking in the rays of grandfather-son, we see a local stonemason artisan carving the cornerstone of the Route 66 placemaking piece. This landmarker is located near the historic McAllister Ranch site at the western edge of our city limits and is part of an ongoing work of the Route 66 historic trail. Slide 7. Understanding the importance of knowing where we have come from in the past in order to see where we are going to in the future is one of many reasons placemaking around the Route 66 trail is based on more than simple nostalgia. Realizing that this is also a tourism tool, BPAC is always working towards integrating the community's benefit as well. Slide 8. We have to thank Mayor Coral Evans and city staff for making the Flower Pot pilot project a reality. While bringing beauty to our community is atop the list of our priorities at BPAC, as a committee, we wrestled over non-native species and light pole engineering issues for years on this project. BPAC now feels that this project will add a colorful pizzazz to our downtown businesses. Slide 9. This beautiful indoor mural for the East Flagstaff Community Library was recently completed by Mural Mice. With youth empowerment as one of BPAC's top priorities, Mural Mice Collective included the youth community to create and design and help with the colors. There will be a Zoom celebration for this mural and the Boys and Girls Club mural coming up on September 30th at 4 p.m. You have all been invited, but I would like to extend a special invitation to our entire community. This will be a celebration of resilience, inclusion, and youth empowerment for Flagstaff. Slide 10. BPAC is working to bring urban landscapes and inspirational public art to our community. Some examples of our current work include pictorial art pieces on the new courthouse facing Beaver. The selection panel is currently determining a selected art piece and is anticipating completion by 2021. Working with the downtown library, their entry was not up to ADA compliance. This was an opportunity to redesign the entryway and add public art to the space, integrating it with art and beautification. Although staff is working to bring an artist on board to be part of the design team, for this space, we need to be cognizant that our community needs that ramp ASAP. We are also working to integrate art and beautification into the design team for the new Downtown Connection Center. Finally, we are working on beautification elements to the airport parking lot. Slide 11. With a newly organized department and increasing staff capacity, we can collectively do more, such as increasing our outreach to the community participation in the program. One example is I and Eliza had a tour with the Kinlani Dorms and Boys and Girls Club to get their perspective on future public art processes, and I hope we continue this as we progress. The BPAC will have a few strategic direction sessions in early 2021 to help solidify and inspire our direction as a commission and for its programming. This will include revising the mission statement and hopefully a planning document that helps new commissioners understand where our commission stands within the city process. We are looking for opportunities to have art incorporated within the infrastructure of our buildings or bridges and have the artist assist in choosing the dynamic location for artwork. This would necessitate having an artist on board when projects are in the design phase. Shown here is a 2019 piece at the Roots Micro Farm, an example of beautification and action grant completed by Sky Black in 2019. Slide 12. There is a couple of formulas for introducing art into the community. One, we have an idea for a project and are left to find a space for it, or two, we have a space for a project and have to figure out the artwork to put inside. This is where we need the communities, including yourselves, to step into the process and help put your tax dollars to work in a space you want to affect change. An example of project ideas that need locations are the Pluto piece. One potential location is Thorpe Park. An example of a location that needs a project idea is the Triangle Park. So let's get our thinking caps on and help illuminate our dark sky city with our minds. Slide 13. This concludes our presentation. Thank you for your time. We appreciate all that you do to support us in bringing inspirational projects to Flagstaff. Myself and staff are now available for any questions.
Council, are there any questions? Vice Mayor. Vice Mayor.
Can you hear me now? I said thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Garcia, for the presentation and your work and your update. I just want to give a quick shout out to BPAC and all the commission members and all the city staff that's working in collaboration with our community, with our local artists, to do all the great work in beautifying our community. I love hearing about the collaboration with Kinlani Dormitory and the students and the youth who are living there. I think that we have an excellent young artists that could definitely use a platform to engage and display their arts. I know that the Mural Mice do a lot of great work in collaboration with the different neighborhoods and different local artists and individuals. And I just wish we just keep building on that and keep growing that, which I know we are. And just in my last comment is just, as we get ready for our update from the Commission of Diversity Awareness, we hear a lot about the need for inclusion in our community and inclusion of culture. And some folks don't feel included in our community. So I know we've talked about a mural, I believe, downtown that will focus a little bit more on the Black lived experience and even around the BLM movement. And I just wanted to know if there's any update on that and any other murals that we can do to better include our beautiful, diverse community that we have. I appreciate. So thank you for your good work. And if there's any updates on that mural, I would love to hear about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Eliza, would you like to answer that question?
Thank you, Chair Garcia and Vice Mayor. This is Eliza. I don't have a specific update for that mural. I will mention that we have a line item allocated for communities that are going through neighborhood plan updates. So we do have dedicated funding for ideas that come from Southside community and others that want to represent that aspect of community, and very open to hearing more about that.
And lastly, Adam, I just wanted to briefly let you know that the commission was in support of that particular mural that you are asking about exclusively. And we're just not sure if it's going to work out as far as all the people involved being able to stick with the project.
And Chair Garcia,
Okay.
to add to that, we had an applicant for a Black Lives Matter mural that pulled their application because they felt they didn't have the capacity to carry it out at this time.
Any more questions?
We have Mr. Odegaard.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chair Garcia, for the presentation. I just wanted to let my colleagues know of a BPAC budget retreat that will be coming up on Friday of October 30th, and then I'll report to the council body of what took place on that date on October 30th. And so, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Odegaard.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Garcia, and to BPAC. We appreciate all that you are doing to beautify our community. We will now move down to item number 6. This is a Commission on Diversity Awareness update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Denise Thompson, Staff Liaison for the Commission on Diversity Awareness, or CODA, as we know. And let me share my screen. Let's see if I can get it. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Okay, good. Let me go. There we go. And I would like to introduce the chair, Dan Duke, who is finishing up his starting his second term, actually, full term with the commission. And also Deanne Wegwart, who is the co-chair for this commission. And she is starting her first full term. So, Dan, do you want to take it away?
Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity. As mentioned, my name is Robert Daniel Duke. I am the Commission on the Diversity Awareness for the City of Flagstaff. And I am accompanied today by Jean Toner, PhD, MSW, as well as Deanne Wegwart, MSRN. Next slide, please. We have a slide presentation for you today that we will be following. Today, I'd like to explain with you what the authority is that CODA has been active with and within the City of Flagstaff. It was initially established in the year 2000 through the City of Flagstaff Ordinance 2000-26. The original authority and function was to foster mutual understanding, tolerance, respect, and awareness among all citizens within the City of Flagstaff. The authority and function has also developed recommendations for the mayor and the city council to assist in developing any policies required to respond to the concerns and needs of those in the community in promoting diversity awareness, as well as the authority and function is to advise and assist the City Council on ways to educate the community on diversity awareness and to develop ways to disseminate such information, as well as to develop and provide public forums to identify and discuss issues of interest relating to the origins of diversity awareness, as well as act as information or referral groups to individuals, organizations, and employees in an effort to aid the community towards greater understanding and respect for diversity awareness among all individuals. Our current commissioner members are Deborah Corey, myself, Dan Duke, Pamela Malone, Jean Toner, Deanne Wedward, and Daniel Williamson. Our staff liaison is Denise Thomas. Activities of the Commission from November 2007 to August of 2020 have contained, but not limited to, certain proclamations, such as the 2017 Native American Heritage Month, the 2018 Black History Month, the 2018 Hispanic Heritage Month, 2019 Black History Month, 2019 Martin Luther King Day, the 2019 LGBTQ Proclamation, as well as we have been working on completion and have completed actually the 2019 Diversity Awareness Survey with 154 responses from the community. We have advocated for a Women's Rights Commission, as well as advocated for a permanent diversity flagpole. The other commissioners are present as well for a discussion of the diversity survey results, but that is what we are working on currently, since we do have the hard copies provided and sent out to the council currently. We are working on planning a strategic retreat. During that retreat, we plan on developing an action plan during that retreat. Part of that would be proclamations for the 2021 year.
Jean and Deanne, do you want to talk about the survey?
Sure, we would love to do so.
Thank you.
Jean, do you need to share your screen?
No, we did not prepare a PowerPoint.
Okay.
My name is Jean Toner, and I am a commissioner, and thank you for this opportunity to appear before the council. Thank you, Mayor Evans and Vice Mayor Shimoni and council persons. Commissioner Wegwert and I are just going to briefly, very briefly, review what is in the report that you all were provided with an electronic copy. And I also want to express my appreciation for the opportunity to serve on this committee. It is a privilege to be able to serve my diverse and rich community in this capacity, and I thank council for that. Very briefly, I'm going to provide an overview of the history, purpose, methodology of this survey, and Commissioner Wegwert will provide a summary of the key findings, and then I will provide just a brief statement of recommendations. This survey was created, it came out of discussions in 2018 where we realized there was a dearth of data that would help us determine what our most effective kind of initiatives would be for the commission. So we decided that we needed the voice of the community, and we began our project by forming a work group, and out of that we did a literature review of peer municipalities that have done these sorts of diversity climate surveys. out of that, we drafted our own survey for Flagstaff, and the City of Flagstaff staff, at the time Shannon was our liaison, put the survey into SurveyMonkey and made it available on our website, within the city website, and the notification went out via Daily Sun, the Daily Sun, and the social media. We determined that this establishment of data-driven efforts would provide us with hard data to provide to the council. It's important to note that this was all pre-COVID, pre-George Floyd demonstration, and it is with recognition that we're living in a changed world now from the time these data were collected. As far as the analysis, we did quantitative and qualitative thematic analysis, and the limitations of the data analysis was that SurveyMonkey limited us to only descriptive statistics. So what you will see in the findings are based on the frequencies that were reported of the 154 respondents, and also the thematic analysis of the qualitative data that Commissioner Wegwart and I conducted. This methodology is not generalizable to the, really not to any peer municipalities, but what it does provide is it provides it is certainly appropriate for exploratory survey that is survey information that is intended to be a pilot and provide information to inform any future steps in research. So Deanne, for findings.
Yeah, hi, I'm Deanne Wegwart, and I'm struggling a little bit. Can everyone hear me okay? Struggling a little bit to think of how to quickly summarize the key findings of such an undertaking as this. I want to thank Jean publicly, though, first of all, because Jean is an experienced researcher, and especially in the area of qualitative research, and without her help, this could not have happened. We did get diverse responses, as Jean pointed out, reflective of the larger community of Flagstaff, and including some responses from people who just object to diversity. People talked about the expense of living in Flagstaff, scarcity of affordable housing, of course. There were instances discussed about racism, sexism, heterosexism, and those kinds of examples did emerge in the findings that we had. There were instances of many, many stories, of course, of personal interactions and anecdotes involving businesses in the community and interactions with law enforcement, of course. Generally speaking, people were saying that Flagstaff in general is a friendly place to live, and that the diversity is welcome here. But there were certainly anecdotes from people who found that it would have been beneficial to have more ways of addressing racism, interpreter services, for example. I think that racism in particular was an area that deserved attention based on our results. And I think in the climate that we're in now, of course, our data is aging a bit, and I think in the climate that we're in now, it certainly does deserve attention. I would like to encourage you to take a look at the larger report that has been produced and at the larger discussion of the findings so that you get the full spectrum of this. Jean, was there anything that I did not point out that you were hoping that I would?
No, I think it was very, I think it was comprehensive.
It's very, very difficult to think of how to summarize this survey in 25 words or less.
So I'll just very briefly, I think Deanne really covered the key findings that we had in this survey. As Deanne said, the picture presented was kind of a mixed picture, and a deeper delve into those data was not really available through SurveyMonkey, so maybe some follow-up work could be done at a future time. And very briefly, our recommendations follow the respondents' recommendation, which included, as Deanne noted, the macroeconomic issues, more inclusive access, more welcoming attitude for gender and sexual diversity, and most critically, a dialogue. This was a repeated suggestion from respondents, a dialogue within the community for resolving issues of racism, surveillance, and intergroup understanding. We also recommended follow-up research with broader systematic research design, similar to the wonderful study that was done in 2013, City of Flagstaff Citizen Survey. We realize in these post-COVID times, or during COVID times, our whole kind of economy has been upended. So we're making these recommendations with the notation that we understand that there's kind of very different economic pressures than there were before. City Council has been really wrestling with the issues that came up in this survey for a long time. And I really want to commend the City Council and Mayor Evans for initiating the three-part, conversation with Flagstaff PD. And anything that the commission can do to support or create a forum for conversation, we are ready and willing to do. But once again, these are very deep, long-standing issues that not just this city council, but prior ones have been struggling with too, especially around housing and transportation and some of the macroeconomic systems that are very difficult to very difficult to find resolutions for the inequalities. So we commend the work in the past and are ready and present to support any future efforts. Thank you.
Council, do we have any thoughts or comments? Ms. Whelan, followed by Mr. McCarthy.
I would just like to take a minute and thank Chair Duke and Commissioner Toner, Commissioner Wigworth and the entire commission for your work on this and your persistence. I look forward to next steps of those recommendations that are going to be drawn. I need to let you know I was not terribly surprised, and I think Dr. Toner, you said these have been historic and systemic things. I believe with where we're at today, we will have great opportunity in discussing many of these things, and I could only hope that members of the commission would be part of those discussions and even possibly, as you've suggested, hold some of those discussions. So thank you so much for all your work and your stick-to-itness. Really appreciate it.
Mr. McCarthy?
Well, thank you, Mayor. I appreciated the summary we just got, but I will also say that I did read the whole report, at least whatever was put in our packet, and which gave a lot more detail. I think it was worthwhile to kind of see where we're at, and hopefully we can move forward. And you know, it's hard to change the individual minds of individual people, but I think by working together, gradually we can do that. And there weren't any big surprises in the report, but I thought it was really good to get it out in the open and talk about it and be aware of where we're at. So thank you for the commission's work. It is appreciated. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. And I also want to express gratitude to Chair Duke and Commission members Jean Toner, Deanne Wegwerts, and others, the whole team, including past Commission members like Emily DeBellis and others who were part of this effort. I think the survey report raises the issues that, as Councilmember Whelan and McCarthy are alluding to, are not new or surprising regarding housing, racism, homophobia, accessibility, relations with NAU, and more. I was grateful to learn about the inclusion of Spanish translation in the survey. And although that we weren't able to use a city portal or afford the technology for cross-referencing with our budget, that we got a pretty darn good report. And like mentioned, before the Black Lives Matter national uprising with the death of George Floyd. I took a special note to the populations that are more difficult to reach that the report outlines, such as younger people in our community. And it also made me think about our unsheltered population. You know, when you look at the responders who responded to the 154 responders, I think they were all either renting a house or having land ownership and house ownership, home ownership. And it just makes me think that there's a population and a portion of the population and multiple small population pockets that we're just not communicating with as a city government. And it makes me think about our priority-based budgeting conversation, which we're gonna have a little bit later. But I think that this report is very timely and appreciated. And I'm very grateful for the hard work done. I especially wanted to bring attention to the cultural events around food and music that was brought up to help harness the climate of diversity and the concerns around turning Flagstaff into Aspen. I think these are real concerns, and I think we have some real work to do on these fronts. And I really look forward to seeing the strategic plan and the recommendations by the commission during their retreats. So in the recommendations, you know, I thought it was really interesting to hear about City Hall being viewed as sterile, and not of too much surprise. I think I definitely have learned to embrace City Hall and call it home, but I think we can make it more colorful, and that might be a good place to start, you know, along with priority-based budgeting. And I liked the sentence in the recommendations that says, talking to each other in a meaningful way is the starting point of every voice in Flagstaff being heard. I thought that was very powerful. And it made me also think about, you know, the efforts of this commission and how we could maybe overlap your efforts as a commission with other commissions' efforts, such as the Commission of Inclusion and Adaptive Living. And there's just a lot of overlap. And have this commission work with city leadership and engage with the Black Lived Experience forums, which are currently underway. The next one is on Thursday at 5:30 p.m., followed by Saturday at 4:30 p.m. And I hope all the commissioners are able to join. And ultimately, I like to see this understanding that we take away from this survey, helping the city with the lens of which we look through when we make decisions and best do our job at representing the population and working for the population. So thank you all so much again for your hard work on this. I look forward to continue to work with this commission on moving these items forward, and I'm very grateful for their efforts.
Mr. Odegaard?
Yeah, I just wanted to basically follow up with my colleagues. Thank you to the commission, and thank you to those that provided this report with the diversity survey report. It's a big lift, and I really appreciate it. So thank you for those that were involved. Appreciate it.
Ms. Whelan?
Thank you, Mayor. One last thing. I wonder if perhaps this could be published in the newspaper or an op-ed of some type as next steps, or perhaps we need to wait for that retreat and a plan of action. But I really think it's extremely worthwhile to allow our community to see these results. Thank you.
So I wanted to take a moment and weigh in and provide some thoughts to this. First of all, thank you so much to our commission for the work that you all are doing and you all have been charged with. I really greatly appreciate this survey that went out. And I will tell you, there's nothing surprising at all about the survey, at least in my mind. I would like to see, and I'm not sure necessarily how we do this, but I would like to see the conversation that the survey invokes somehow heightened. I'm not sure if it would be going directly through the council or through our commission or whatnot. I'm not sure how that looks. I will tell you that the commission that we have now is very, very engaged. And I do believe that we have heard them say that they would like to continue the conversation and have a broader conversation in our community. The one thing I would say is that if the commission is to lead the charge on this, the commission is going to need the support of council and the entire will of council behind them. I was on council and I got to witness what happened to our Diversity Awareness Commission during the conversation that had to do with LGBTQIA rights here in this community. And the forums that were held at that time, the negativity that came out with regards to that. And after we held those, I think it was a total of 3 forums, at the end of the day, everybody on our Diversity Awareness Commission opted to leave. And we had a Diversity Awareness Commission that was, all the positions were vacant for quite a while. And so I do think that when you start talking about race and place and things like that, we need to make sure that we have people who can help facilitate those conversations in a way that allows everyone's voices to be heard, and that makes sure that some of the negativity that we are seeing, quite frankly, no longer at a national level, but also down at a municipal level, does not impede those conversations when we have them, and that we seek to remove the fear that comes with those types of conversations and the people who sometimes try to insert fear in those conversations. I also I was looking at the survey itself, and I agree with our vice mayor that there are a lot of people in my mind that were not part of the conversation. And I'm not sure as we move forward how we can make sure that everyone is included, because that is our definite goal. But I do think when you look at how people responded, the percentage of people who responded, there's populations of people, not only young people, not only people who are unsheltered, but quite frankly, different ethnic groups in this community, and also people that do not have the technology diversity. We all live in this global age, and I know we all love Facebook and SurveyMonkey and things like that. But I just want to remind everybody that there is a serious technology gap in this community. And there are people who do not have access to all of these tools that some of us have. And so we need to be mindful and make sure that those individuals have a chance to hear their voice heard. And so those are just some thoughts that I had. but I was very excited to see the work of the commission and very thankful for the work of the commission as well. Any other council people? Okay, we're going to move on to our next commission. Thank you. This would be item number 7. This is a Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, this is Denise Thompson. I'm also the staff liaison for this commission. So let me share my screen and get their presentation up. There we go. And I would like to introduce the chair, James Martinez, and the vice chair, Russ Randall. They will be doing the presentation for you.
Thank you very much, Denise. And thank you to Mayor Evans and Vice Mayor Shimoni and esteemed council members for allowing us to be here today and provide you with an update on the Commission and on Inclusion and Adaptive Living. As Denise said, my name is James Martinez. I go by Jamie. Most everybody knows me by Jamie, so feel free to call me Jamie. And I am the chairman of this commission. Mr. Russell Randall is serving as vice chair. Monica Attridge is a member. Christina Leland is a member and advocate. And currently we have 3 vacancies. So there are 4 of us that are serving with 3 vacancies. So that kind of puts us in a special consideration, be it that if any one of us has to be absent from a meeting, we cannot have a quorum and hold the meeting. So we are doing our best to publicize our vacancies and make sure that word gets out so that we can continue to receive applications for the commission seats. And as Denise said, she currently serves as our staff liaison. So next slide, Denise. Thank you so much. It is the commission's duty to advise the city council. It is the commission's duty to advise the city council on issues affecting the city of Flagstaff in relation to individuals with disabilities and shall include, but not be limited to, Section A, a review of city compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Arizonans with Disabilities Act. Section B, review of city programs, activities, services, and procedures to ensure that all citizens are afforded equitable access to same and to collaborate with other city commissions.
Thank you, Jamie. And this is Russ Randall speaking now. Section C, to develop and transmit recommendations to the City Council to assist the City Council in developing policies to respond to the concerns and needs of those with adaptive living challenges. And Section D, to provide a public forum for identifying and discussing issues of interest in support of individuals who have disabilities, and to act as an information and referral group to assist individuals, organizations, and employers in efforts to aid members of the community to optimize independence and inclusion.
And Section E, provide recognition for those in the community who further the goals of disability awareness and inclusion. And this commission went through somewhat of a metamorphosis in that we used to be known as the Disability Awareness Commission. On September 18, 2018, we went through a name change, and we are now the Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living. We voted on this name because we wanted it to have a very positive image going forward, because we want to promote inclusion, and we definitely want to promote adaptive living for individuals who are differently abled. Next slide, Denise. So our community liaisons is an exciting benefit that we've recently added. Citizen liaisons provide monthly reports addressing critical needs and issues for differently abled citizens of our community. The community liaisons allow the Commission to broaden our outreach, our accessibility, and our representation within the community. Currently, our liaisons consist of Estella Hollander. She represents Mountain Line and Mountain Lift, you may know as our local transportation. And Kelly Arnold represents the Northern Arizona Community of Practice Transition Team, which is primarily geared toward youth transitioning from high school into adulthood life. Former liaisons have included Mr. Joe Goitia, formerly employed with the Division of Developmental Disabilities, and Ms. Sherry Peralta, who provided advocacy on community accessibility, especially looking at the outlying areas of Flagstaff. Next slide. So,
community outreach is a high priority of the Commission. Through our community outreach, Commission members engage in a variety of other leadership and advocacy groups within the Flagstaff community. Our community outreach allows Commission members to more fully represent our entire community of citizens who are differently abled. With a small Commission, we've decided that the community liaison approach and using community outreach allows us to more adequately represent the needs of all the stakeholders involved, all folks who are differently abled in our community. Jamie, Mr. Martinez is the current chair of the Coordinated Mobility Council for Transportation. And Jamie, why don't you talk a bit about what you do in that position?
Sure. So as Russ said, and thank you, Russ, for that introduction, I'm also the chair of the Coordinated Mobility Council for Transportation, coordinated with Mountain Line, Mountain Lift, and the city of Flagstaff as well. And we have representation on that commission from service agencies and organizations throughout Greater Flagstaff who are concerned about how do we improve transportation options for not just people with developmental disabilities, but how do we improve transportation for folks universally? Much following the concept of universal design. So that commission meets quarterly. So we meet every 3 months, and it's usually the third Friday of the month, and anyone is welcome. Our hours of the meeting are 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So with that, we have a valid voice in the community with regard to transportation. And Martin Ince, who is also with the City of Flagstaff and the Flagstaff Metro Plan, provides valid insight into that commission as well. And Russ, if you'd like to explain the Community Practice Transition Team.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jamie. So our Community Practice Transition Team is about 12 years old in Flagstaff. So we are one of the older transition teams in the state of Arizona. And I was a founding member, and I'm past chair and a current participant. And as Jamie briefly pointed out, our community of practice team advocates for the needs of youth and young adults as they transition in our community. And specifically, we try to address the needs of youth and young adults who are differently abled. We are a subgroup of a statewide community of practice transition team, which is actually itself a subgroup of the national community of practice transition team. And we are a collection of individuals who represent stakeholders. So we have representatives from the school district. We have representatives from charter schools. We have representatives from NAU and Coconino Community College and Voc Rehab and Developmental Disabilities Planning Council. And we also have a parent, we have a student involved. Actually, our vice chair right now is a student, which is kind of exciting. But we meet monthly. We meet the third Monday of every month. And we frankly discuss issues of concern to the youth with disabilities in Flagstaff. And then we actually try to post some solutions to those concerns as well. And it's very exciting to have a representative of the community of practice team. Our youth liaison, Kelly Arnold, is very exciting to have her as a liaison to the commission.
Okay, and next slide. Some of the activities that the Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living has been very fortunate to participate in and implement have been the Downtown Mile Wheelchair Race. The Downtown Mile Race, we implemented a wheelchair division included in the annual 4th of July Downtown Mile Race. This started in 2018 and it expanded in 2019. And we were underway for planning 4th of July activities for 2020. But as we all know, the pandemic hit, and so 4th of July activities were canceled. But we are very excited about this opportunity because it brought people together of varying types of abilities to support one another and bond. And this was a coordinated activity with race organizer, Mr. Vince Sherry of Run Flagstaff. And the photos that you see before you were provided by the Arizona Daily Sun.
And Jamie, you know, Vince has been really kind of amazing. I don't know if you all know Vince. Vince is very involved with the whole running world of Flagstaff, which, as you all know, is a huge world. And in order to have a wheelchair division of the Downtown Mile is an amazing thing. Hundreds of people at the finish line lining the race. I've had many of my students involved. That lower picture is actually Caitlin. She's defeating one of my students in this picture, but that's okay, Caitlin. Caitlin's quite amazing. But you know, the other thing we have been working with Vince on is and actually looking at some of the other races in Flagstaff that occur and seeing if we can provide either a wheelchair part of it or a more accessible part of the race as well. So major kudos to Vince. A lot of assistance with that, and it's just kind of a cool event that we've been able to help facilitate.
We definitely want to give kudos to Vince for thinking outside of the box and working with us to make that happen. It's a tremendous event. Another thing that just warms my heart is the Thorpe Park Playground. We were able to provide new accessible playground equipment at Thorpe Park in response to community requests and need. And this adaptive equipment uses wheelchair accessible rubberized surfaces. It sets playground equipment at various heights and includes seats, allowing for easy transfer from someone's assistive devices. And we can see here from the photos that there was a ribbon cutting ceremony that was very well attended by commission members. We can see Mayor Coral Evans in the photograph and several city dignitaries. This ribbon cutting took place on June 19th, 2017.
There we go. Thank you. The Aquaplex, as you all know, is an amazing facility for us to have in our city. And, you know, for folks who are differently abled, the Aquaplex is more than just a leisure center or an exercise center. The Aquaplex itself is therapeutically used by many, many differently abled community members. I myself am a member of the Aquaplex, and when we are in the real world, I am swimming there at 6 o'clock in the morning, 3 or 4 days a week. And as a 61-year-old man, I would let you know that most often I am the youngest person at the Aquaplex at that time, because swimming truly is a therapeutic activity for differently able folks and for many of our older folks in Flagstaff. The Aquaplex does host functional fitness hour every Friday afternoons for folks who have unique and different needs. And that's a wonderful event that the Aquaplex allows us to facilitate. And that is a program that's coached by Coach Marty Heilman. And we could go to the next slide. There have been some concerns that have been brought to our attention with regards to the Aquaplex. The Aquaplex is a very difficult facility to manage and to facilitate. Between the water quality and the chemicals, and frankly, staffing has been an issue. It can be difficult to hire enough lifeguards in Flagstaff to keep the Aquaplex open when it needs to be opened. So those concerns were actually brought to us by a differently abled member of our community who reminded us of the therapeutic nature of the use of the Aquaplex by so many members of our community. So one of the things we reacted to is we did work with Parks and Recreation staff on solutions to some of the problems that were there, including better notification when the Aquaplex pool itself is closed. For many folks who are differently able, they're not just able to get in their car and drive to the Aquaplex, and then if it's closed, turn around and leave. For many folks who are differently able, transportation is a concern. So, you know, planning and expenses involved in getting to the Aquaplex. So we've worked with the Aquaplex to be able to notify folks when something does occur and that the pool itself is not going to be open. Prior to March, prior to the pandemic, this is a process that still has been kind of undergoing in place. But the Aquaplex managers are working to provide that pool as much as it possibly can be open for those therapeutic uses. And it's one of the ways that the commission has been reactive to community needs.
Okay, and we have our annual awards recognition. The commission annually honors members of our community who perform exceptional service within the differently abled community of Flagstaff. The commission facilitated award recognition receptions both in June 2018 and February 2020, just before the pandemic hit, at the Flagstaff City Hall with city dignitary presence. And I would like to extend a thank you again for Mayor Evans for attending this event, and Council Member Odegaard was also there. So thank you for being there. This is a great way to promote inclusion and adaptive living and recognize those folks within our community that do so. So thank you again for being there. I would also like to say that as a 51-year-old man who grew up here in Flagstaff, and I now serve on this commission, I have cerebral palsy. This is definitely one of the highlights of my life, to be able in the city where I grew up and be able to give back to a city that has given me so much. So thank you. Along with that, we will progress to the next slide. And one of the projects that we have put our heart and soul into, our blood, sweat, and tears at times, is making the Flagstaff Urban Trail System accessible to all. And I'd like to introduce presenters Caitlin Verfurth, our former chair, and Martin Ince with the City of Flagstaff, the Metro Plan Flagstaff. And I want to just reiterate, this project, the inception of this project happened about 3 years ago. So that should give you some insight as to how long we've been at this. We definitely want to make the Flagstaff Urban Trail System accessible to all who want to be able to utilize it. So my hat is off to Caitlin and Martin and everyone that has really put every ounce of effort that they have into this project. And with that, Martin and Caitlin, would you like to take it away?
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Russ, for a great presentation and setting us up here. Good evening, Council. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to share. My name is Caitlin Burforth, and I'm a resident of Flagstaff and the former chair on the Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living. And during my time on the commission, I volunteered to complete all of the 57 of the Foots trails and determine what trails are accessible. During my time on the trails, that's perfect, Denise, you can put it right there. During my time on the trails, I found quite a few trails to be almost impossible if you're a wheelchair user like myself. However, with a few small improvements, some of these trails could be accessible for all, allowing more individuals like myself to have access to these beautiful trails. And since the coronavirus, I have found that getting outside has become even more important. Having adequate access to nature, accessible for all, has become even more important to me today than it was 2 years ago, or now 3 years ago since I started this project. It's basically free mental health and the best part of Flagstaff. This past year, we are celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And as I sit before you and speak today, as my brothers and sisters did when they fought for equality for people with disabilities back in 1973, I'm asking for your help in increasing awareness and inclusion within our city so that all Flagstaffians can enjoy our beautiful spaces. We are not asking to be 100% ADA compliant. Nature is not intended to be ADA compliant, but we are asking with a little creativity and a little ingenuity is to take what we have and to allow for those few places on our trails to be inclusive and accessible for all. Denise, you can go to the next slide, please. Can everybody? Yeah, perfect. Some of the main issues of our trail system is there's some poor trail material, cracks, washout, sand erosion, pavement, too steep of inclines, both going up and down, as well as cross slope. And I've worked really hard with Martin Ince, as well as Russ Randall and Jamie Martinez and a few other people on the commission. And I would like Martin to go over a little bit and talk about what are some of the few accommodations or few improvements that we can make to our trails to make them accessible for all. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Caitlin. Honorable Mayor Evans, members of the council, this is Martin Ince. I'm the multimodal transportation planner for the city. And Denise, if you could skip a few slides ahead, we can take a look at, let's stop on that one for a moment. As Caitlin mentioned, this is an audit that was performed by the commission over the last couple of years that include all 57 miles of Foots trails. And that we've been working with that information, and I'd like to indicate how useful and valuable that information is to us at city staff in helping make our trail system better. And if you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. If you would just back up maybe one slide. from there. These are some of the issues that Caitlin and the commission found on trails having to do with the surface material, some issues with drainage where trails are paved. If not maintained, they can have cracks and deflections. Flagstaff is a hilly place, so sometimes the grades are a little bit difficult to get up and down. And in some cases, trails have a cross slope from side to side that makes it difficult. Some places where trails cross drainage washes or gravel roads, there can be some issues with grade and materials. And Denise, if you'll kind of skip ahead, we've got a number of slides here that kind of indicate some of the conditions that the commission encountered and documented with trail material and cracks. And you can keep going forward. You can see that the commission's work was very extensive and very thorough as well. And go just a couple slides further forward, and we can start talking about what the city is doing and what the city can do to help address some of these concerns. So I think one more back from there. I think maybe one or two back from there. Steep grades. Is there one about materials before that? No. Okay. Go to the next one. Thank you. So as I mentioned, Flagstaff is a steep place. We have a lot of hills that makes it a challenge often for our trails, but there are a few things that we can do to make them more accessible for everyone. One is that we can set standards for grades when we build trails or when trails are built for us by private development. We already require that grades of 10% or more be paved. We can continue to work on trying to avoid grades that are that steep in the first place. Where we do end up with steep grades where it's inevitable, we can provide pullouts, level spots for people to be able to rest as they go up, and also railings to provide some support. So next slide. Where there are cracks and deflections in paved trails, a year or so ago, we changed the engineering standards to increase the minimum concrete thickness from 4 inches to 6 inches in an effort to help reduce some of the cracking on concrete trails. When we build new trails, we have standards for control and expansion joints. Those are the little horizontal lines in the trail that if you ride over them on a bicycle, they make the thump of the thump sound. We have a new standard that makes them much smoother and more amenable to everything that has wheels, from wheelchairs to strollers, to bikes, to rollerblades, to skateboards. And then finally, we've had difficulties over the years with maintaining and keeping a good surface on asphalt trails. So for the moment, we're not building any new asphalt trails to kind of avoid that maintenance problem. The next slide. Where drainage and erosion create ruts and washouts in the trail. About a year ago, an intern for the Parks Department inventoried system-wide where we have drainage problems with trails. As Parks moves forward with their regular maintenance program, some of those problems are addressed or fixed. There's also an option for us to set aside some capital funding to do more substantial repairs, so we don't have to keep maintaining drainage problems from year to year where they keep reoccurring. Moving forward into the future, we can create better guidelines and standards for drainage to avoid the problems in the first place. And as I mentioned before, we typically pave steep sections now to keep drainage issues to a minimum. Next slide. Some of the other issues with trails, including the wash crossings and gravel road crossings. Our best solution here is to inventory where we have existing problems and either work through them as part of regular maintenance or set aside some capital funding to fix those problems. And moving into the future, we can develop better guidelines and standards. So when trails are built, they require less maintenance and are closer to meeting ADA than they are now. And next slide. And we'll talk about one specific set of improvements for Buffalo Park. We are in the process of preparing a grant application to Arizona State Parks to help make Buffalo Park and the Nate Avery Trail more accessible. This would be a grant through the Recreational Trails Program, which is federal money that's administered by Arizona State Parks. Grants are available for up to $80,000, and there is a 5.7% local match. And one of the eligible categories for projects includes ADA accessibility improvements. Next slide. This map shows Buffalo Park, and in purple, the Nate Avery Loop Trail, which would be the subject of the grant. And next slide. These are some of the elements of the project scope. It would include making accessible concrete parking spots and access at the entrance in the parking lots of Buffalo Park, resurfacing the Nate Avery Trail with a new aggregate material, which is smaller, compacts better, and is more accessible to wheelchairs, providing directional signing around the loop where the accessible cutoff is, so people can avoid the big hill down and the big hill up, and providing better information at the trailhead on the length of the trail and grades and surface material and some of those other critical pieces of information. There are a series of exercise stations around the park. So part of the project would be to remove the railroad ties and replace the surface of the fitness station to make them accessible to people who use wheelchairs. And funding being adequate as an alternative, we could replace some of the fitness stations with exercise stations that incorporate universal access. And next slide. And this shows kind of a schematic of the entrance to Buffalo Park. You can see the existing gravel parking lot. The improvements would include the things shown in light gray, which would be accessible parking spaces, and just that bit of the parking lot would be paved. And then there'd be a paved entrance into the park through the gateway and around the entryway, and a paved access way over to the new restrooms to provide better accommodation for all users, but in particular, people who use wheelchairs and others who have mobility limitations. So I believe that concludes our presentation, but I think on behalf of myself and the other members of the commission, we're happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Aslan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question for Caitlin, if she's still with us. Caitlin, I noticed in some of the photos you were riding in a specific kind of wheelchair. And I know there are different kinds of wheelchairs for different trains, and that you have access to some of those varieties where not everybody will. I was wondering if you could talk about that dynamic a little bit and share with us more which kind of wheelchair you were mostly using when you were on the foots, and what kinds of different problems you were running into that might be specific to different kinds of apparatus.
Yes, thank you. That's a very good question. So I was using a wheelchair that is more of like a off-roading wheelchair. It has bigger, knobbier tires, and so I'm able to go through a little bit more gravel and sand, as well as my front casters, which are the front wheels are called casters. They were raised up a little bit higher. Also, it was on a type of wheel that could go through a lot of sand. It was more grippy, kind of like a mountain bike tire. So I was, when I did this project, I was using a specific chair to help me get out on the trails. But there were a few places in town where I could use my everyday chair, which is my regular wheelchair that doesn't have knobby tires. Something like maybe Jamie, another person on the commission, would use. And I found one of the great places like Buffalo Park, if the surface could be a little bit more packed down, a person using regular everyday wheelchair could have no problem going to Buffalo Park, attending some of the events that happen at Buffalo Park, maybe meeting a friend to go for a hike around the loop. So that's why our main idea is to focus on Buffalo Park for this grant project. There are a lot of other wheelchairs that you can use. There's another one that's called the Grit Freedom chair. Instead of pushing with your arms, you would kind of like the Nordic track, you would propel these two levers, and that would help you move on the trail. Same thing as the wheels are like mountain bike tires. You're able to get through almost any kind of surface. But a lot of the things that I noticed that were where I had a lot of trouble was when there was a lot of washout or erosion had happened and my wheels couldn't even grip the ground. So if I was going down a hill, I would be going pretty fast without being able to stop. There's right where I live very close to Fox Glen Park. And I would really like to be able to, get off on Butler, jump on the trail there. But there's two areas where there's a lot of sand, and I couldn't even get through those two sections of that trail, even in my hiking chair, the chair that I was able to do a lot of the trails in, because the sand was just so thick. There was no way I could get through. So I literally crawled through the sand, pulled my chair over to the other side, got back in, and continued on my way. But that's definitely where I saw a lot of problems on the trails, was mostly where there was erosion over time. The ground wasn't packed down enough, and there was a lot of slipping and sliding. And in some cases, the grade was way too steep. So if I didn't have someone with me to help me get up to the steep part of the trail, I would just turn around and go back. So that's where sometimes in some areas like in Buffalo Park, where there is a steep incline, having some kind of railing or a shelf where people can like stop and kind of take a break or break up the steepness of the trail there, could really help and make it accessible for a lot of people.
Well, and thank you so much. And as I said to start off with, not everybody's going to have the same access to sporty all-terrain wheelchairs. And so our standard should probably be somewhere more averaging, what a typical user, or I don't know the term, a typical street wheelchair can handle.
Correct, and I agree. That's why I think really though, if you think about Buffalo Park and all of the events and activities that do go on there, and if we could use a more of an aggregate surface, more packed down, a lot easier for anybody using any kind of wheelchair. I still go to Buffalo Park. I don't even take my hiking chair. I'm able to walk my dogs and get around, but it would be a lot easier if it was a little bit more packed down, a little bit more even. And I just think it would make our community just a little bit better, and everybody can come and be part of some of those events.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. And thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Mr. Odegaard, followed by the Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I really want to thank Jamie and Russ for presenting today. And thank you to Martin Entz about the exciting happening concerning Buffalo Park. That was really nice to see. Going back to that Thorpe Park ribbon cutting ceremony, I had met a mom that day that she was nearly in tears because her son's in a wheelchair, and she could see her son playing in that new playground as any child would be playing. And I really want to thank the city of Flagstaff and the commission for bringing that project forward for the community. It was very heartfelt. And I want to thank Russ for bringing up the concerns concerning the Aquaplex. It has been problematic with staffing issues, and I'm sure the city manager has noted those. So when the Aquaplex does reopen in the future, those issues won't be a problem as they have been in the past. And so thank you, Russ, for bringing that up. And thank you for the presentation. I really enjoyed it.
To the Vice Mayor, followed by Ms. Whelan.
Good evening, afternoon, everybody. I'm going to just let council know. I know I said I wasn't going to speak much, but how can I stay silent on such great updates and conversations and topics of interest? And so I had to weigh in and just express gratitude to this commission, to the chair, Jamie, Russ, Monica, Christina, Caitlin, all the community partners that were mentioned, and of course the city staff that has been so supportive of these efforts that we're talking about. I do have some questions and some comments. Martin, can you tell me, are we planning on having a discussion regarding 419 funds, and are those funds being utilized to address some of the issues we're talking about?
Yes, Your Honor, Vice Mayor Shimoni, we will have more conversation on how the bike and ped portion of the 419 funding will get divided up among different projects. I think that will occur with the council over the next couple of months. We have some preliminary ideas, and of course, there's money in the budget already beginning at this fiscal year on July 1st for some projects, but we will have further conversation with both the council and the community about how that money should be spent. And I think in general terms, in the interest of taking care of what we have, I think there is a potential role to include some of those capital funds to fix some of the problems that we talked about. And this really, I think, goes beyond just kind of day-to-day maintenance. I think it really are more sort of, we think of as capital repairs that more permanently address ongoing issues. So there are places on the trail, for example, that will wash out every year. And instead of having crews go out and repair those places every year, can we fix that drainage problem so they no longer wash out? So I think there's a role for some of the 419 capital funding in identifying some of those areas and helping to fix them.
Great, thank you for that. And very exciting to hear about the Buffalo Park grants and just opportunities that we have moving forward. I'd love to get more regular updates from this commission, at least to myself, in regards to the needs, the struggles, and just the real-time experience of those who are struggling to get around. I studied special education at NAU, and I'll never forget my classes, both with Councilmember Jamie Whelan as a professor when I was a young pupil causing trouble, and she helped get me in line in life in general, but with Chris Lancerman. And Jamie taught me a lot of good hard lessons, but Chris Lancerman, his course on universal design was life-changing, and something I'd like to see the city really embrace in the way we operate. Are we leaving people behind as we move forward? And if we are, that's an issue. We need to be developing as universally designed as possible. And I'd love to see us fill all the cracks in our society and in our pavement, and really do this right for all people in our community, and really be inclusive as we want to, as we claim to be. So thank you all so much for your service on our commission. I look forward to helping out and getting those last 3 seats filled in partnership with you all. I'd love to help you out with that, and raising awareness of all the great work you all are talking about on a regular basis and doing for our city and our community. Thank you, Mayor.
I'm going to go to Ms. Whelan.
I'd like to say thank you so much. It's good to hear all of you, Jamie. Thank you for your leadership. Russ, your commitment is unmatched. And Caitlin, thank you for taking on those trails and allowing us to get some feedback. I heard policy changes. I heard Martin in that we have great opportunity here. And I've got to agree with the vice mayor. I thought that when we constructed things, it needed to be ADA accessible, whether that be paths, hiking trails, or entryways into buildings. I think City Hall is a perfect example of that. So it's difficult when you don't have people who understand the concept of universal design in things. But I really hope that Vice Mayor and the council members that will be on council will take this and really look at policy that sets the precedent that AA is and universal design has got to be the way to go. We would save on the cost of step and all of those things, and I'm just happy that we're getting these reports from you, and I want you to know that you can come to the council at any time and speak in public participation about what you're up to and bringing us up to date or what you need help in. So I hope all the commissions hear that, and I just want to thank you for all your hard work, and thank you to the commission.
So I just want to weigh in and say thank you so much to Mr. Martinez and Mr. Randall, as well as Caitlin and everyone else who is involved with our Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living. I'm very excited and mindful of the important work that you all are doing in our community to make sure that everyone has access and has the ability to enjoy a quality of life that we have all come to expect. One of the things that I do want to apologize to the commission, I know that this year, in lieu of the celebration that we had in the lobby, you had asked us to send in email videos, and I was neglectful in getting my video back to the commission in time, so I do apologize for that. I also wanted to mention that I'm very excited about what you guys are doing with the Foots Trail. You know, since COVID has entered our society, I have had the opportunity to spend a lot of time on the Foots Trails here in Flagstaff, the Foots, and the beauty on the Foots is absolutely incredible. And I have often wondered if everyone has access. You know, definitely access to the ability to take time off the work to go on the Foots, but also how people who have mobility issues interact with nature, especially on trails that are funded through taxpayer dollars. So I'm excited that we are looking at the Foots and how we will be able to better, you know, first of all, maintain what we have, and then also in the future, build them so everyone has the ability to be on them. So thank you for being mindful of that and looking at that. Anyone else, Council? Well, thank you so much for the presentation. Before we move on to item number 8, Council is going to take a 10-minute break. So actually, that would put us back. Let's come back at 4:45. Thank you.
Set.
All right, let's go ahead and move forward with our next agenda item. This is a discussion. This is item number 8, a discussion with possible strategies and timelines for the re-implementation of the pay to park and permit programs for the Flag Park District, including the downtown and south side areas.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. I'm David McIntyre, your Community Investment Director. I'm here today to discuss with you some of the dynamics around the Park Flag Parking Management Program. We'll touch on what the program has been doing since its suspension and some of the reasons, options, and alternatives for bringing the program back. Park Flag, as a program, intends to manage parking in the south side and downtown in order to ensure residents have access to parking in their neighborhoods and to ensure the downtown has parking available for customers so it stays as vibrant and prosperous as possible. These ideas are a part of everything we do. Also important is the goal that Park Flag revenues from pay to park and permits provide the resources for the enforcement of the district. pay back the debt from the initial program setup, and build funds for the development of additional inventory in what we call the lockbox. As you will likely recall, Park Flag was suspended by proclamation on March 16th in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and the corresponding closures to business. That suspension has provided support to the businesses within the district as we all worked to pivot and adapt to this strange new world we find ourselves in. During the suspension, Park Flag has continued to perform enforcement of Title IX traffic violations and respond to residents or businesses who are experiencing the impacts of bad parking behavior. General enforcement has continued in the Southside residential areas as well. Park Flag has not been charging for permits or for paid parking during this time. Staff have also, even though reduced to half of their normal number, been working alongside the Downtown Business Alliance to sanitize high-touch areas, assist in the expanded use of rights-of-way in the downtown, and have even planted flowers and handmade sanitizer wipes for the outdoor spaces. They have also been providing customer service and maintaining parking infrastructure, such as painting red curbs and keeping the kiosks functional and protected. The team has done all of this while maintaining social distancing guidelines and keeping safe. Additionally, staff has created and maintained carryout zones designed to enhance the ability for businesses and patrons to conveniently manage their carryout food service. These carryout zones have been very popular and are anticipated to stay in place until no longer desired. As you also likely recall, the Council approved changes in February of 2020 intended to adjust the program in response to feedback and data over the first 2 years of parking management. Employee permits were reduced from $45 to $10, and additional spaces were made available to those with employee permits. Also, the hours were changed to make them simple and easy to remember while ensuring that parking is managed when it's most needed. These changes were in the process of being implemented as the pandemic hit. As you may have seen throughout the district, the signs have been replaced, and I think the new ones are simple and easy to read, as you can see on the side of this slide. In additional good news, new parking lots are anticipated to be online this fall or winter. The first, supporting the new courthouse, but also available for public parking, will have 87 spaces, 5 of which will be ADA spaces. That parking lot will be on the northwest corner of Beaver Street and Cherry Avenue. The second, which is where the existing courthouse currently sits, will also support the courthouse, but will be available to the public and will provide an additional 55 spaces, with 3 of them being ADA. As the pandemic and business cycles have adapted over the past 6 months, we have seen things shift and change. Parking space occupancy has returned to the downtown. Visitors and locals are frequenting the downtown and enjoying the businesses and amenities available there. Some employees are filling prime available parking spaces for long periods of time. Students have returned and are also filling spaces throughout the district, and most especially on the south side. They are sometimes parking in the district and commuting to campus by foot or by bicycle. Additionally, there has actually been a reduction in available parking as the carryout zones, the expanded rights-of-way, and other uses have absorbed spaces. But these have all been beneficial adaptations done in partnership between the city and the DBA, and I think they've shown real effort to support the downtown. As parking spaces filled, staff began receiving feedback that enforcement is necessary again. Staff cannot impact the long-term parkers without the permits and pay-to-park portions of the program in place. Many businesses have told us they want enforcement, and numerous have said they would like that enforcement as soon as possible to help create turnover for customers and help encourage employees to park in the employee parking zones. As mentioned, those employee permit fees were just reduced to $10. Other businesses and some members of the public have said they feel the business environment remains too fragile to bring back the pay-to-park program at this point, and that we should wait until next spring. Some also stated that while they understand the need for parking enforcement, they are concerned that local residents will not be as willing to come downtown if pay-to-park is in place. And as visitors leave and temperatures outside make patio dining less appealing, this could be impactful on the already struggling businesses. The challenge is that parking enforcement and paid parking are intrinsically linked. Conversations with the Downtown Business Alliance and their consultant, Progressive Urban Management Associates, referred to in this presentation as PUMA in the future, have led to the confirmation that overall managing parking remains important. and the beneficial to the prosperity of the downtown long term. They reiterated that for a downtown to flourish, parking needs to be available and fluid, and it is neither of those right now. Of note, according to Puma, all the other cities they work with have fully re-implemented their parking management programs. And after their analysis and interviews with stakeholders, the need is there for Park Flag to return as well. This discussion is about helping determine when and how we do that. Parking counts performed regularly by Park Flag staff have shown that occupancies are routinely now between 70 and 90%, which is considered higher than ideal. And as mentioned, numerous businesses and residents have told us they feel it is time for enforcement to return. It has been said more than once that parking now is worse than it was in the period prior to Park Flag, and that it is clear parking needs to be managed again. As you can see, our feedback has been varied and disparate, and there are important considerations to be taken into account as we look to the present and to the future. The proclamation from March 16th says that Park Flag is suspended for the duration of the orders proclaimed within. As with many things related to the pandemic, that has become more nebulous, as many of the activities restricted in the proclamation are no longer restricted, but the emergency declarations do remain in place. Staff has reviewed and assessed many options for the return of the program. Discussions with many stakeholders and assessment of a variety of impacts to the business community, the residents, and the program have narrowed those options. First, I'll go over a few of them now on the surface level, and then as we go through the presentation, we'll discuss the pros and cons and future impacts on the following slides. One option would be to listen to the voices of the businesses who say Park Flag needs to be managing parking again as soon as possible, and bring back the Pay to Park program in October, as amended with the changes that are approved in February. A second option is to implement a phased approach. This would allow the program to be brought back with a free time period available to parkers each day. That time period could be 30 minutes or it could be an hour. This would be in place for a transition period before reverting to the full program. The intention of using a phased approach would be to begin that management again while continuing to welcome locals downtown through the free time period. This could potentially begin in October as well. A third option would be to bring back the program in its full state a little bit later, allowing for the fall and the holidays to continue to proceed with free parking until a time in the winter or spring when parking management would be re-implemented. And a fourth option begins that phased approach with the free time increment as described a moment ago, but again, waits until after the holidays. A few considerations for these. Re-implementation of the Park Flag program fully is simple, and it complies with previous council direction. It encourages behavior change, manages parking effectively, and generates revenue both for building parking inventory and to pay for the costs of the enforcement being requested. Phased re-implementation also allows staff to move employees to the outer areas and out of the prime parking spaces. It requires kiosk or app use while keeping a free time period. It prevents all-day parkers, but hopefully continues to welcome local people downtown as businesses continue to adapt to the pandemic and the weather turns colder and less hospitable for outdoor dining. If a phased approach is determined most favorable, the program would need to adapt again in the future. It can be in place for a defined period of time, and then either we would revert to the full program or look for other possible alternatives. One area we have not yet focused much in this presentation is the financial responsibility of the program. It is anticipated that up to $100,000 per month in previously anticipated revenue is not being received due to the suspension. Currently, there remains a $677,000 debt, which Park Flag revenues are responsible for paying. Additionally, there are numerous fixed costs which must be paid in order to maintain the infrastructure necessary to bring the program back. These include rent, software costs, and staffing, as well as the debt payments and internal transfers. While we have reduced staffing by half, further reductions could make the ability to bring the program back more difficult. Without revenue, it is anticipated that cuts to the program would be required that would be structurally significant, or other resources would need to be identified to pay those debts. If the full program is re-implemented in October, with the previously approved changes to hours and permit fees, it is believed that it will be self-sustaining and will begin to add to the inventory fund. But this could not be done any later than March 1st without significant risk of structural concerns. So again, if the full program comes back, it could be any time between now and March 1st. If the phased approach is implemented, including the temporary time period, the 30 minutes or an hour or whatever free, it is anticipated that revenues received for that hour would be roughly 50% of what's expected. It is hard to know how behaviors will change, but that is an estimate based on our previous parking statistics. If we implemented it in October, it would provide revenue that would support the program past March, but would not likely maintain the program in perpetuity. It is anticipated, based on these estimates, that the program would need to be implemented by January in order to avoid major financial concerns if we provided an hour free. If 30 minutes is provided free, that reduction in income would become less, but still not likely able to sustain the program on an ongoing basis. Unfortunately, there is no perfect answer in this situation. Reimplementation in October responds to the needs to manage parking again, and could be done simply or with a phased approach to continue welcoming locals and visitors downtown with free parking for a period of time. However, implementation would occur just as the season turns naturally, and it could create a perception that reduced customers are a result of parking, even if that's not the case. Starting the phased approach as late as possible, such as in January, has its implementation during a historically slower business time and as minimum wage increases. Bringing back the full program in March provides the longest period possible without external revenues, but is unable to provide the free time period. Fundamentally, the need for parking management has been demonstrated, and it is back. Many of those we spoke to enjoyed the idea of the phased approach as a way to ease back in while providing the tools for management. Per our public feedback, some wanted parking management back as soon as possible. Others wanted to wait until the business season begins next spring. Unfortunately, without identifying other funding or risking default on our program's obligations, we need to begin generating revenue either at the very beginning of the year if we're providing free time, or by March at the latest if we charge for all time used. And so to recap for the discussion, option 1 is the implementation of the full program in October. While this is the simplest and most stable for the program, there are concerns it will impact the fragile business environment as we head into the fall. Option 2 begins the program in October with a free time period for parkers. This full program would come back around Memorial Day. This gets management back in place and begins to generate revenue while still welcoming locals back downtown. Option 3 provides more time and has the full program begin as late as March 1st in order to get through the holidays and the slow season. And option 4 also waits and can begin with a free time period provided as late as January. The bold on this slide show the options with the free time period. Generally, public comment has been extremely favorable to the idea, although certainly not unanimous. As mentioned, there are arguments for and against each option. Over the last couple weeks, the public comments have seemed to shift a little bit from option 2 to option 4, but we've also heard support for option 3. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm looking forward to the conversation and to your guidance.
I believe we're going to start with Mr. McCarthy.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. I've got my mic back on.
Mr. McCarthy, do you have a clarifying comment, or can I go ahead and take public comment for this?
Why don't you take public first? That'd be good.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take the public comment, then I'll return to Mr. McCarthy.
Perfect. Give me just one moment. Your 3 minutes begin now.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh.
Hi, welcome to public comment. You have 3 minutes.
Terry, your 3 minutes begin now.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council members. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Terry Medexa, and I am the Executive Director of the Flagstaff Downtown Business Alliance. Parking management is critical to having a vibrant downtown. The suspension of Park Flag has shown us just how necessary it is to have our limited parking managed. Today, all public on-street parking spaces are nearly full before noon and are being used by long-term parkers. This means there is little to no parking available for those wishing to patronize our businesses, be they visitors or locals. And without a method for enforcement, we are back to where we were 3 years ago in the decades prior to that, which is a business district whose vibrancy is hamstrung by a lack of parking. We can now see how effective Park Flag has been over the past 3 years at keeping limited on-street parking available to support the livelihood of so many small businesses downtown. Enforcement, which is being demanded, cannot happen, though, without paid parking. The two are linked. One pays for and makes possible the other. Enforcement before Park Flag was limited to one part-time officer and was completely ineffectual on addressing parking management. While enforcement is clearly needed, the big question is about timing. I agree with what Dave said earlier, and many businesses have also echoed. The business environment remains too fragile to bring back paid parking immediately, and we need to wait until next spring. Business owners also stated that while they understand the need for parking enforcement, they are concerned that local residents will not be as willing to come downtown if pay to park is in place. Small businesses need our support now more than ever before. They are dealing with yet another perfect storm of challenges. This time, it's continued effects of COVID, plus slowing visitation as the weather cools, leading to what is traditionally the slowest time of year, and then another minimum wage increase on January 1st. Re-implementing paid parking anytime in 2020 is not the right move to help support downtown businesses. Having said that, it is important that Park Flag resume at some point. If Park Flag resumes in January with a free hour or half full program even later in March, this also offers us an opportunity to re-educate and re-message to the community why Park Flag is so valuable, which is something we may have missed at the initial implementation of Park Flag. I understand the complexity of this issue. Parking is never easy, and our choices here may not lead to an easy best answer. So we need to choose the least worst.
Excuse me.
October feels
Terry, your 3 minutes are up.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Council, do you have any questions for Ms. Medeska? I don't see any questions.
Madam Mayor, I have one. Councilmember Salas here.
Ms. Salas?
Yeah. Is Ms. Medeska still on the line?
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember Salas, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah. So I am curious in your recommendation. What would you recommend?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilmember Salas, my recommendation would be to wait at the very earliest until January if there's going to be a free hour or half hour, or wait until March and implement the program in full. And if there was any way to have some type of enforcement now without charging, I would say let's put our heads together and figure out how we can get enforcement started now and then resume paid parking in January or March.
Okay, so just let me, I just want to be clear. I heard you clearly. With respect to the paid parking, you would support a phased re-implementation that begins in January with the first hour or half hour free, and then the full implementation of the paid parking program later in March. And then you brought up an issue or the need for enforcement between now and January to manage and prevent those how do you call them, the day users that occupy the entire space for the whole day? Is that correct?
That's correct. I would suggest putting our heads together to figure out if there's a feasible way where we can have 2-hour parking now to either January or March, when some way park flag and paid parking resumes.
Yeah. Okay, I heard you clearly. Thank you, Ms. Medexa. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else on council with questions for Ms. Medeska? We're going to move to Mr. McCarthy, followed by Mr. Aslan.
Well, thank you, Mayor. After reading the staff report and listening to the staff today and the ideas put forward, and then reading the letter from the Downtown Business Alliance, Terry, and what you just said right now, of course, I have, I guess, two thoughts. I think my idea, which I think takes the best of everything I've heard, is that we implement the full program by March 1st, but that in the meantime, starting October 1st, we limit downtown parking to 2 hours. And that would address the problem of people parking there and spending the whole day and taking up all the parking. So my suggestion is that fully implement paid parking March 1st, and then in the meantime, only allow 2-hour parking. And then another related issue is that I'm concerned about is that right outside of the, and this is a problem we've had for 2 years, where right outside of the paid parking area, like 1 block over, or sometimes on the other side of the street, people will park all day long. So I'm suggesting that we look into having an area around the full paid parking where it would be 2-hour parking only allowed. So those are kind of like two separate ideas. One is maybe more long-term, and the other is what I think we should do between now and March 1st. So I'll listen to other comments. Thank you.
Mr. Aslan?
Thank you. Well, first a quick comment directed at Terry, but also everybody, and then a question for David, if I may. It's nice to hear Terry say what she had to say. As someone who's been supportive of Park Flag and paid downtown parking during my term, I realize that it can be controversial and that it's an unpopular idea among some circles, and then it has broader support among other circles. It's satisfying, to be frank, to hear the the argument that regulated parking is important for downtown Flagstaff, and to hear that from the Downtown Business Alliance. That said, we do have this question right now of what to do and when to do it. And my clarifying question for David is, and I think I know the answer to this, David, but I just wanted to ask that on the record and to get a clear answer for everybody to understand. What we're being asked to do tonight is to set a course of action in motion, right? We're not potentially with some of these options kicking the can down the road and making other decisions in the next council.
Mayor, council member, yes, we're looking for guidance. We're looking for an understanding of the will of the council. In any of these options, you guys could provide direction, and we can implement as we move forward. If you asked us to come back to a future council to talk about dates and times, of course we would. But if you wanted to give us guidance now, we'd be happy to follow that until we're provided additional direction.
Okay.
I would just like to weigh in and say that we have the options up on the screen for all of us to see. At this particular time, really, council's being asked to choose an option so we can have direction.
Wonderful. That's what I was hoping to hear. I do not want to simply implement some stopgap measure right now and then have this question be left for the next council. Given all of that and what I've heard from Terry and from other community members and what I just heard Councilmember McCarthy say, I actually support his plan in theory. I think there might be some devils in the detail in terms of where this 2-hour parking goes and who that affects. But it sounds like the sort of compromise that we're all hoping to find. And when we're working with a universe of, least worst options, a compromise that sort of creates a little bit of space for folks to breathe makes sense to me. I'll leave my comments there for now. If you're going to need further direction in a bit, I'm happy to provide that, but I'm curious to hear from others as well.
I'm going to go to our city manager first, then to Mr. McIntyre, then back to Mr. Odegaard.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Council, and thank you, Dave McIntyre, for a nice presentation. I would like to make an impression upon Council and ask for a consideration. The impression I'd like to make is that the staff has done a lot of due diligence on this. I can tell you with certainty that this matter has been coming back and forth to our table at the staff level for a long time. And these options that are before you tonight come with a lot of vetting and a lot of forethought and a very careful analysis with respect to our revenues, and Dave touched on that. The request or the nudge I would have for Council is to please consider the options before you. If we start hybridizing this, we are quickly going to get into an area that, one, could prove to be very difficult to administer, two, may not coincide nicely with the strategies that we have in place in terms of staffing, signing, and so forth. And three, it may not be consistent with what we've been hearing in the due diligence work on this. So I'm stopping short of saying that Council has to choose one of these options, but going back to previous considerations by Council, Council has made it clear that options are preferred, and we're trying to respect that this evening, and that's why you have 4 options in front of you. But I do caution that the more we get into compromising or hybridizing this, the more difficult it's going to become to implement. Thank you very much.
Mr. McIntyre?
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to add a little context to the idea of trying to manage 2-hour parking between now and either March or January, whenever the program came back. March is on the table at the moment. And while I know the city manager just provided some discussion points on the items on the screen, I did want to speak to some of the details. We have looked at what it would take to manage for 2-hour during the period between now and when the program would come back. It would be in some ways difficult to do a 2-hour period if we were doing it based on a 2-hour period for the chalking of parking spaces. So for instance, if it was you're only allowed to be in a space for 2 hours, what we could do potentially at the risk of providing some hybridization right after those comments is start with 2 hours free, then go for a period of time, then go to 1 hour free or full implementation. 2 hours free was found to not be able to provide really any revenue for us. So that's not one of the options we had provided as a way to address these challenges. But if the guidance is to bring the full program back in March, which would address the revenue issue, and to find a way to do some sort of management during the process, we could provide 2 free hours, which is effectively free parking. But it's not exactly a 2-hour time period, because that would mean replacing all the signs and doing additional logistics that would become quite difficult. I hope that's helpful.
So I'm going to go back to Mr. Odegaard, then to the Vice Mayor, then back to Mr. Aslan.
Yeah, and thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Clifton and David McIntyre. Talk about the hybrid solution really is probably not the best option at this point. Me personally, I am so frustrated with the downtown business owners and the people that work down there that they've created this problem among themselves. I feel really bad for Terry Medeska. It's like herding cats, but I just don't understand this issue where the business owners and the people that work down there don't understand about keeping parking available for their customers. As many of you know, I was downtown for decades, and we as a small business owner, we were on a corner where Collins Pub is now. We didn't have parking. We had one parking space, actually, where Rainbow's End is, but we didn't have parking for everybody. So what happened is the business owners kind of did a collection plate of sorts and created parking there on Beaver, just south of the tracks on the right-hand side. That was paid for among the business owners of getting together and creating parking space for themselves and for their employees. And so I walked to work at least 2 blocks. And then that parking got changed. Then that parking became available to the west of that. So it came an extra block, 3 blocks. Me, no big deal, I was happy to walk the 2 to 3 blocks so there would be parking space in front of my shop for my customers. Even when we moved next to the Orpheum, where we had our own parking, we still parked across the railroad tracks there on Beaver, just so we created parking space for our customers. I get my haircut from Mr. Ulibarri downtown there on the Rue. One time I went there for a haircut, and he was so frustrated. He brought a concern to me where an employee was parking right in front of his shop 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And so I want to thank Terry Medeska for resolving that issue where they created a temporary parking spots for his customers, because most of his customers are like the takeout orders. They're only going to be there for a few minutes and then out they go on to their day. And so, we had to create a temporary parking space for Mr. Ulibarri. That's because the business owners and the employees won't park where they should be parking. It's just so frustrated. And then people say, well, what did we have to bring managed parking? Well, this is a reason, because they can't take care of policing themselves, which is so unfortunate. Knowing with everything, with the letter that I received, the council body from the DBA, I'm going to wait re-implementing the parking program to option 3. And I beg the business owners that happen to be listening, I beg the employees that happen to be listening on this council meeting, they need to park where they should be parking to save the space for their customers, that give them the living that they enjoy and be able to have a job. And so that's my sense. And sorry, Mayor, for maybe going a little long, but I'm just so frustrated with the downtown. And so thank you.
I'm going to go to the Vice Mayor, Mr. Aslan. Who's after the Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, everybody, for this conversation. And thank you, Terry, for weighing in as well from the DBA, and David for the presentation and your work on this. I'm interested, I really like the idea of having this free time period, whether it's half an hour to an hour before the rate kicks in. I think that would be a real welcomed shift by our public. I think that's kind of the nice compromise. And City Manager, if I'm hearing you correct, we're not working on, we're not trying to mix and match too much. But David, is that part of that's part of the discussion, right? This potential free period of time. and I know we haven't hashed out the details, whether it's 30 minutes or an hour, but that's correct, right?
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, the free period of time is actually a part of two of the different options.
Right.
One would have the free period starting in October. One would have the free period, and if it was an hour, it could start as late as January. But those are some of the options on the table.
Okay, so I would be interested in option number 4, because I just think that as we're heading into winter, and given that we're still in the heart of this pandemic and our numbers are increasing and our businesses are fragile, I think that doing this now could be harmful. And I would be, I think option 4 makes most sense to me. David, you mentioned that there's a parking lot being built with additional parking. I'm just curious, are we integrating EV into that parking lot?
I believe that the ability to provide EV is being provided in the parking lot. I believe that's the case, to be honest. It's actually part of the court's project. Park Flag will be managing it. So I'm not 100% of that detail, but I do understand that we're providing the capability to put EV in, but not EV directly, although I'm speaking a little out of turn here.
That's fine. Okay, that's helpful. And if anyone from staff wants to follow up with me, I'd appreciate that. And then my last comment is in regards to the needs. I'm kind of shifting gears here, and I apologize, Mayor, and Council, but thinking about the South Side, as we're going through this lull in how we're addressing parking and the implementation of our pay to park program, I think it's an opportunity for us to really get ahead on the needs of the South Side neighborhood and work out residential paths or whatever it is that they need. David, can you speak to that really quick in terms of where we're at with meeting and addressing the needs of the South Side neighborhood? And if we can address that once and for all in the foreseeable future?
Sure. Mayor, Vice Mayor, the South Side is actually part of the district, as I'm sure you all recall. And in general, it is an opt-in area. We do have a number of block faces and areas that have chosen to become part of the regulatory framework. And what happens there is a South Side block decides to petition for inclusion. The staff does an analysis and then goes in and puts in the infrastructure. The residents are able to choose between a series of dynamics, which could be 2-hour free parking on one side, permit parking. And so that's intended to provide some parking to the public, but also to help preserve spaces for residents. We have continued to enforce the resident permits throughout the South Side during the suspension. It's not because they're not pay to park or permits that are paid, they are provided free to residents in there. And because we knew that was going to maintain a necessity. We've been working to provide additional outreach in the past because we know that it was challenging for some blocks to reach all the different owners and to get their petitions in. But we are hoping that we can continue to work with residents who are interested in the program to identify whether their block would like to participate. Gail Brockman is also on the call, and I'm sure she can speak to the details of the enforcement we're providing down there in the petition process even better than I can, if you'd like more detail.
I hear someone came on the call. I'm not too sure if that's Gail or someone else, but
it is me. Would you like more detail, sir? I'd definitely be willing to share.
Sure, maybe really quick. Thank you.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. This is Gail Brockman, interim parking manager with Park Flag. And just to start, we love our Southside residents, and I think our Southside residents love seeing us. We keep parking moving. I know that they appreciate we keep the residential areas clear, so they have available parking in front of their houses. We have been doing some enforcement, some ambassadorship since March, and we have continued to write citations. We do write citations on the South Side. We always start with warnings first before we move to a fined citation. And we have written quite a few actually for poor parking behavior, as well as quite a few warnings, close to 70 warnings, I believe, just to keep people out of the residential parking areas. So I know that, we do have a lot of free time since we're not doing paid to park right now. So we're trying to keep our residents as happy as possible.
Gail, I really appreciate that update and your help and your work with this. So in closing, I do support option number 4 to my colleagues on council. I think that gives us enough time to communicate the new changes. And David, really one last question. If we did move forward with option 4 or option 2, how would that affect our signage? Would we be able to work with what we've already invested in?
Yes, Vice Mayor, the signage would stay consistent. What we would do is that at the kiosks, when somebody arrived at the kiosk, they would be informed that their first hour is free or whatever the time period is. And they would still need to go to the kiosk because that's how they register their license plate. So the transaction would provide them a free hour at the kiosk or through the app. But because of that, the signage actually is able to stay in place. So hopefully it's easy and convenient. What we would do to make sure that everybody was aware of it, who resides in the community, is do some significant advertising and marketing of that free time period to help make sure people know to come downtown. Other than that, when visitors arrive, they'll see at the kiosk and they'll find out. We could, of course, put some flyers up and notes on the kiosks as well to try to make it more clear, but without removing and replacing all 104 signs at the kiosks, we'd probably work with the kiosk messaging and some marketing.
Great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Mr. Aslan, followed by Ms. Wheeler.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I wanted to give a shout out to City Manager Clifton for speaking up and leaving us with impressions, quote unquote, as were his words. I really do value when our city manager chimes in. And of course, I was hinting at some of the same concerns when I was talking about the devil being in the details. I'm happy to choose between one of these 4 options if that helps to simplify life for our staff and for the community. And looking at them, to be honest with you, personally, I'm not adverse to option number 1, just starting the full program in October. I think we do want to find that compromise, though, and so I think the best fit from my perspective would be option 3. I feel Memorial Day is too late, and even March 1st seems like we're letting this go for an awfully long time. But if we're stuck within the parameters of the options as presented, then I would say option 3 with a 1 hour free time at the start. And then if we do that, I do have a question about how we deal logistically with people parking, getting out of their cars, going away to do their thing, thinking that they have a free hour, and just really hitting the marketing, as you said, David, to make sure that people know that they need to go to the kiosk and they need to register their license plate in order to qualify for the first free hour. I think there might be some confusion on that particular point, but I'm probably getting ahead of myself right now. Option 3, 1 hour.
Okay, let's go to Ms. Whelan.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'm wondering if you have done any looking into the $2 paid parking, because those did not close their kiosks, and my experience was that they were full, even while we were offering free parking. So do we have any information? Did their numbers drop because they were charging $2 an hour? Was that taken into consideration when you made up these options?
Mayor, council member, no, we don't have specific numbers from the private vendors. We do know that their occupancies have been high while charging $2 or even $3. Yeah. We have been aware of that and have watched our occupancies increase, but their specific numbers were not taken into account as a part of these options. It was more based on occupancy, on our public feedback, and on the ways that we could try to meet some of the comments we were getting from the downtown while still managing to meet the city's other obligations.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
So I want to, Mr. McCarthy has a comment, but I want to make sure that I have not heard 2 hours. And so I just want to, is there any council member out there who was looking at the 2-hour idea? I heard,
No.
okay, I heard very clearly direction on, or at least 3 council members, I believe, have said 3. I'm going to go to the city manager and make sure that that's right before I go to Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I may have missed one. I've heard at least 2 express that. I believe Councilmember Aslan and Councilmember Odegaard expressed support for item 3. I may have missed somebody else, and I apologize.
Vice Mayor, which one were you interested in?
I was interested in number 4 or 2, basically, but 4 more so.
Okay, but 4. Okay, so and then Ms. Whelan, what were you interested in?
I haven't made up my mind, Mayor.
Okay, Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor. The way I'm reading the council is that my 2-hour, my 2-hour maximum idea is dead. So I guess I'm leaning. I definitely do not want option 1. So I could actually live with 2, 3, or 4, but I don't think we should go to the full program in Memorial Day. I think we should go to the full program by March 1st. So unless there's some support of 2 or 3 with a March 1st, then I will go with option 3.
Okay, we are not trying to do hybrid, so I'm going to put you down for option number 3.
That's acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to the Vice Mayor, followed by Ms. Salas.
Mayor, why don't you take Ms. Salas first, and we can, once we finish this, I just have a closing comment.
Okay, Ms. Salas.
Me 3.
Okay. Go back to Ms. Whelan. Ms. Whelan?
I think it's important that we have the least impact on the businesses in order to support them. And from the report, I see that number 2 has the least impact. Is that correct, Mr. McIntyre?
So, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Mayor, Councilmember Whelan, all the options have positives and negatives. Unfortunately, it's difficult to know which is going to have the least effect. The idea of 2 is that we would provide that phased approach with a free period of time that could run from October all the way through Memorial Day. So that free hour to try to welcome people down. That has actually had some comment that October is too early. So I think in terms of the least impact on this next holiday season, option 3 is considered less impactful.
Thank you. I'll go with 3, Mayor.
Okay. And so I do believe that everybody has weighed in on the options. I would say that I am fine with option number 3. I was leaning more toward option number 4, but it looks like the council majority is fine with 3, and I would be fine with 3 as well. I'm going to go to Mr. McCarthy, then I'm going to go to Vice Mayor, then I have a follow-up comment because I know the Vice Mayor wants to talk about parking in Southside. Mr. McCarthy?
Well, thank you. I would just ask staff to look at the idea of providing some 2-hour maximum parking in the areas 1 or 2 blocks out of the paid parking area so we can solve this problem of when you're like right next to the paid parking area, people will just park there all day long and causing problems for the businesses and residents in those areas. And that's obviously not a discussion for tonight, but if it pleases the city manager, I would appreciate a discussion on that in the future. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm just still pondering this whole South Side parking situation, and I did appreciate the comments shared to us by Gail and Mr. McIntyre, but I guess I'm thinking about this whole idea of implementing a residential parking permit system at large for that South Side neighborhood, and why it is that we just haven't done that. It seems like that would be the easiest thing to do, at least in my opinion, that best supports that neighborhood. And Mayor, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this and what you think we need to do, because I just don't know if we're getting there or if we're really there yet. So Mayor, do you have anything you can add to this?
Yeah, I do. So the reason why the South Side does not have a residential parking permit system is because there is a lack of council will to implement one. I can't be any more blunt than that. The Southside neighborhood is the only neighborhood in the state of Arizona that's adjacent to a public university that does not have a residential parking permit system. When we first had this conversation, and this was like 2 or 3 councils ago, there was the option to have the entire neighborhood just be opted in. There was a conversation about some of the longtime residents here are very, very frustrated in this neighborhood, and they were like, we shouldn't have to park. I'm like, we should not have to pay to park in our neighborhood because it's being inundated with college students. So then there was a conversation about, well, who should pay and how they should pay. There's a conversation about every address gets 1 residential permit to park on the street. There's a conversation about, well, how many should be for residents and how many should be for general open permits and selling permits and things like that. But at the end of the day, council just doesn't have the will to address the situation. You know, NAU did show up to one of the meetings because NAU has parking on campus. And they were very clear with council that in order to address the parking in the South Side and make people park where they work or where they go to school, you have to put some type of protective measures in the neighborhood. And that was council's responsibility. I am very grateful for Park Flag. I see Park Flag almost daily up and down the streets, but I do believe that Park Flag needs to be able to more police, for lack of a better word, or more address the parking issue in the neighborhood, and they need a tool in which to do so. As a resident of the South Side, I find it frustrating that I have to stop and go fill out paperwork and go do a bunch of other stuff to get my street to be opted in. There are some people who have had the ability, or someone who's had the time, who's retired, that has had the ability to track down stuff and work with city staff to do that. So I think there's like 2, 3, maybe 4 streets in the South Side that have this. But everybody else is busy working and haven't had time to do that. I just think it's very unfair that when all this was set up, it just wasn't set up correctly to begin with. As a South Side resident, the only reason why I have parking anywhere near my house is because I'm parked on the street right now. Otherwise, the street's inundated with cars. And the majority of these cars do not live on this street.
So, Mayor, in follow up, I really appreciate your testimony and your sharing of your personal experience with this as well as a resident of that neighborhood. Obviously, I'm very supportive of what you're talking about, and that's 2 of us. We would need 2 more council members to agree with this. I know that's on tonight's agenda, but City Manager, I feel like this council would be in favor of doing something on this topic, especially after adopting the recent Southside Neighborhood Association plan and with the whole Black Lived Experience conversations. I just think that it's time we address this once and for all and do what's right for that neighborhood. So council, I guess, hopefully we have the political will to do something.
So I'm going to go to our city manager first and then back to Ms. Whelan.
Well, thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council for a thoughtful discussion. Yeah, I think procedurally, and I'll say what hopefully is never stated enough, we're here to serve at your pleasure, and Council makes policy decisions. So if there's a desire by Council to address the South Side and the iniquities in the South Side because it adjoins the university. We're glad to advance that discussion. My only comment, Vice Mayor, is while it relates to the topic in front of you tonight, it's not exactly on par with the discussion tonight. And my respectful recommendation is to get it on an upcoming agenda. And as I'm saying that, I'm seeing the comments from Councilmember McCarthy. I think that would be the better approach. What that does for us, Council and Mayor and Vice Mayor, it enables us to, once we go forward, is to have good engagement with the Southside Neighborhood Association and make sure it's a fully vetted discussion. And thank you, Mayor, for enlightening us as to the history on this. I now understand that it's been before Council a few times. We're glad to bring it back. We would just be looking for some direction by Council, and we'd be glad to do just that. Thank you.
City Manager, quick follow-up.
Oh, Vice Mayor.
I apologize, Mayor. Can I ask a quick follow-up? Thank you.
Yeah.
City Manager, thank you for that. And I agree with you in regards to tonight's agenda item. Do you think we'd be able to squeeze this in the upcoming month or two?
That, if I may, Madam Mayor, that's a city clerk question. I know, because we talk about this every week, that our working calendar is beginning to get filled up because there's a lot of items that this council would like to address prior to the new council being seated, and that, of course, is expected. There's many items that this council have been wrestling with over time, and I think the council very properly wants to see a few things to closure. That said, if our city clerk can offer up whether we have an opportunity to get that on the agenda, we certainly can do so.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Whelan?
Nothing to add, Mayor. Thank you.
Ms. McCarthy, I think you have to verbalize what's in the chat.
Yes, as I said, I would like to do that. Southside parking should be on an upcoming agenda, and I'm agreeing with the other council people on that. The other thing I would ask is when we're having that discussion, that would be a great time to talk about my concerns about the parking one block past the paid parking and how those people are getting buried in parking and have no open spaces because everybody that doesn't want to pay for parking goes right to there. We need to address that somehow too. Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Solis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I echo that the urgent desire to put Southside parking on an upcoming agenda, preferably before December 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we given direction on this item, so we're going to go ahead and move down to item number 9. Item number 9 is our priority-based budgeting public engagement plan.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This is Shane Dilley, Deputy City Manager for the fine city of Flagstaff, Arizona. It's good to be with you this afternoon, and staff is excited to re-engage you as the council on this topic of priority-based budgeting. Next slide. Thank you. I'd like to quickly outline for you what we'll be covering in our presentation today. This is a continuation of the discussion we began with council at your August 18th meeting. We'll begin with a quick overview of the roadmap of the journey that we began in the pursuit of higher performing governance as a local government to the community we serve. We will then introduce to the council and this is in response to council requests as we went through the last budget cycle, but we are going to introduce to council a three-phased public engagement plan for our priority-based budgeting process. We'll also review with council some suggested changes to the objectives that the council put in place a year ago and then we'll discuss next steps. Next slide, please. Mayor and Council, you can see from the illustration on the slide that as an organization, we are currently working on Action 3. That's where the nice little city of Flagstaff car is located on that road. As depicted in Action 1 below, the city embarked on this journey back in May of 2019. That is when the council approved the contract with Resource X to begin working on implementation of priority-based budgeting. Action 2 was when the organization went through the undertaking of breaking our entire operating budget down to the service and program level, and then costing all of those programs and services out. So 100% of our operating budget was allocated to a program or service. And then we scored each of those programs and services on how well they aligned with the council's established key community priorities. Again, that document that you formed or forged in September a year ago in your retreat. Last year's beta test of priority-based budgeting, which is affectionately referred to here as Action Step 2, and the lessons we learned in that process have really helped us make this year's effort, which is where we're at now in Action 3, all the stronger and more meaningful when it will come to using the priority-based budgeting tool for our upcoming budgeting process. Action 4 involves the creation of a strategic plan, which will help memorialize all of these efforts to date, but we don't feel is absolutely critical to our success now here today, and is therefore something that is scheduled further down the road. And then Action 5 is really something that is part of our DNA as a high-performing government, but it's this overarching concept of continuous improvement where the council and staff, as it relates to priority-based budgeting, will continue to expand the use of the tool to bring greater public transparency and involvement into the city's budgeting process, and will help ensure that greater strength is demonstrated in the alignment of our programs and services to the community as it relates to stated priorities. Again, we're at Action 3, where we are to, again, we're here at Action 3, and in this step, we introduce the desired community element to the priority-based budgeting tool and process, and this is an effort of our second round of implementation. That said, I'll now turn the floor over to Jack Fitchett, a member of our priority-based budgeting project team, to cover phase 1 of the proposed 3-phase public engagement plan. Jack?
Thank you, Shane, and good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jack Fitchett, and I'm a management analyst to the CMO. So the PBB administration team has developed an outreach strategy to help better explain the PBB process to our community and let our residents know how they can be involved in this year's process. We have developed 3 phases to help us achieve this outreach and involvement. And for the first phase, we have been working with a video creation firm over the last several weeks to develop 2 videos that help explain PBB and how the city has utilized this software. And the second video will explain how the public can participate in this year's process. Phase 2 focuses on collecting community feedback on the PBB priorities and objectives via survey. And Sarah will be speaking more to that phase here momentarily. And then lastly, phase 3 is centered on creating a group of community members to work with staff and participate in the peer review process. As a reminder, the peer review process is a portion of the PBB method that looks at programs and how they scored in relation to our community priorities and objectives. And Shane will be speaking more towards that phase at the end of this presentation. Next slide, please. So as previously mentioned, the first phase of this outreach plan is focused on the creation of 2 videos. Again, the first video helps explain the PBB process and how the city has incorporated this tool into its budgeting process. And the second video is really a call for public participation and explains how the community and our residents can get involved through the survey and peer review process. Also wanted to note that staff did incorporate council's feedback from the meeting several weeks ago, and both these videos will be translated into Spanish. So with that, we actually have a segment of the public participation video that I've mentioned that we can show you tonight that gives you a preview of what these videos will look like. Again, this is just a portion of the videos and they're still in draft form, but we expect to have the finalized versions of both videos and their translated counterparts in the next several days. And we will certainly share both completed videos with you as soon as we receive them. So with that, Heidi, if you'd be kind enough to play the segment.
This year, we will be looking for several interested Flagstaff residents to participate in a scoring review process. These residents will be in groups with other city staff members, reviewing program scores to see how they align with these priorities and objectives. If you are interested in being a part of this process, there will be additional information on how to apply coming in the next several weeks. This will be a great way to learn more about the city budget. Recap: how to get involved in the process, fill out the survey, and provide input on the identified key community priorities and objectives. If you are interested in learning more about the PBB process, please contact ppbadmin at flagstaffaz.gov.
Thank you, Heidi. And again, Council, that was just a segment of one of the draft videos, kind of covering more what Shane and Sarah will be talking to you about here momentarily with the community survey and the extended peer review process. So with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Sarah Langley, to talk more about the community survey. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack, and good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Sarah Langley, a management analyst in the City Manager's Office. So moving on to phase 2 of the PBB Public Engagement Plan, we have the Community Input Survey. As we talked about during the August 18th council meeting, this survey will give the public, will ask the public to give their feedback and input on the objectives that council approved in September of 2019. And specifically, we will be asking the public for any suggested edits to the existing objectives and if they have any new objectives that they'd like to suggest. Next slide, please. So we heard council's feedback during the August meeting on a desire to have a more robust outreach plan for the survey with the goal of really increasing access and participation from all members of our community. So the PBB team met with some of our in-house public participation experts, including Sarah Dector and Rose Tohi, to identify the most effective outreach techniques given, the current COVID-19 constraints that we face right now. And their feedback was really centered around messaging the importance of the survey through trusted communicators and not just having that message come from the city itself. So we incorporated that feedback and came up with 3 key methods of outreach that we propose using: online, print, and in person. So for our online outreach, we will of course use the standard community forum announcement and accompanying social media posts. And then we have also, with the help of city staff in multiple divisions, put together a community stakeholder email distribution list. And that includes over 180 community organizations in Flagstaff. The full list of all of the community organizations is included in your agenda packet, but the types of organizations are shown on the slide in the table. So the plan is to send the survey link to these community stakeholders or community organizations and ask them to encourage their clients, constituents, members, whoever they interact with, to fill out the survey. And that way the message isn't just coming from the city itself, but from a variety of community stakeholders and groups. We will also be emailing the survey link to business license holders with an email address on file. So that's approximately 2,000 email addresses. And we will also be emailing the survey link to municipal billing customers with an email address on file. And that is over 10,000 email addresses. Next, we will utilize print media to advertise the survey. So we will run an advertisement in the Daily Sun with the survey link. And also, when we do email those community stakeholders, we will let them know that if they have any constituents who would prefer to fill out the survey on paper, we can drop off however many printed copies they need along with stamped envelopes to ensure that those constituents can participate. And again, this approach really allows community stakeholders to let people know about the survey so that the message is not just coming from the city directly. Lastly, we plan to have in-person outreach for the survey. So city staff is planning to walk around in areas with significant foot traffic, of course wearing face masks. And we plan to distribute postcards with the survey link if the person would like to take the survey online, or we can also distribute a printed survey with a stamped envelope if the person would prefer to fill out the survey in hard copy. And then in terms of other considerations, the survey will be available in both English and Spanish for both its online and print versions. And just kind of a last note, of course, we realize that this is really an ever-evolving process. So this year, these options seemed best given the limitations that we face on public gatherings and in-person contact due to COVID-19. But in coming years, we definitely look forward to increasing our outreach efforts further and experimenting with different types of outreach. So are there any questions on the survey or the outreach plan?
Council?
All right.
I do. There is the Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Of course, I've got something to say. Deputy City Manager Daly, Mr. Fitchett, and Sarah, thank you so much for all of your work on this. I'm so pleased with the plan and in the direction we're heading in. I do think there's a couple things I'd like to add comments to. I think the videos are a great idea, and I'm glad that the survey is also going to be offered in Spanish, but I'm wondering if we can do videos not only in English, but in Spanish, Hopi, and Dene. I know I'm just kind of adding to my wish list here, but I just think it's so important that we get off to the right start with this priority-based budgeting and inclusiveness, with the inclusivity with the city community members that we have. So that's one point, is if we can do things in multiple languages when it comes to the outreach and about how this is going to work and what we're asking the public in their engagement. I'd also like to see the video use more empowering and call to action types of language. So things like, we are asking for your help in shaping our city through our budget, and value your opinion. Your opinion is important to us, and your involvement is appreciated. And then, I love what Flagstaff Local has done with just the prizes. And maybe we can somehow, integrate a raffle in when someone completes a survey, they can enter into a raffle that we can then, announce after the fact or during the whole campaign. And then the other piece I wanted to add too is the idea of a QR code. I think a lot of times folks struggle to navigate our website, right? And I know we're working on revamping our website, but I have folks all the time say, how do I find an agenda? Or how do I find the streaming link to the council meetings? And I always just Google it and just tell them to Google it, because it's tough to navigate our website. It's not so user friendly. So I'm just wondering if we can get a QR code that goes directly to the survey to help with this. And then Sarah, you mentioned hand collecting results. I think that's great, and I'm very excited about that. And that there's a plan in place for that. My only comment is, can we have like a little bit of a intention to reach the harder to reach populations as well? So maybe we can team up with like the shelter and go and do a couple of days at the shelter and just get a bunch of results from folks that are unsheltered, quite frankly. And then maybe we can even team up with NACA and work with that and work with some of their population that they serve. And then obviously campus, right? The student population is going to be a hard one to get to fill out the survey as well. So maybe we can work with some of our partners on campus. And I saw that the email list of partners is intensive and wonderful. And it's very exciting to see that kind of collaboration. So that's going to help too. And then the last thing I wanted to add is, I think this could be a cool opportunity to reach out to our tribal partners across the Northern Arizona region and let them know, hey, if you have members of your tribes and your communities that live in Flagstaff, let them know that we value and want to hear from them in shaping our future. I think a lot of times we hear from the Diversity Commission report that the survey they put out, that tribal partners and individuals don't feel welcome in Flagstaff. And this is such an opportunity to change that. And so I'm really excited about everything we're talking about. I think there's a lot of potential for what we're doing. And I know I'm asking for a lot, but I just really see value in what we're talking about. And I'm happy to help on the ground with some of these things I'm asking for, to be a team player and put my money where my mouth's at in making this happen. So let me know if you have any questions, Deputy City Manager and staff. But hopefully my colleagues on council agree with where my mind's at, and we can really make this happen in a really powerful way. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Oh, sorry, Mayor.
I don't see any other comments at this time.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you to the Vice Mayor for his comments. We can definitely work to incorporate those ideas in the rolling out of the video and the surveys going forward. And we will definitely be following up with council on how we implement those.
And maybe some raffle prizes. Get with Heidi. She might be able to connect us to some goodies. Thank you.
We will do that. Yeah, thank you. So if there's no further comments, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Greg, who is going to walk us through some of the proposed updates to the objectives based on recent events.
Thank you, Sarah. And I'm going to ask you to park it on this slide for just a minute, and then I'll quickly get into the objectives. Thank you, Vice Mayor, for your comments. I want to start off by sharing a very, very quick story. This morning, I had a 1-hour interview with an individual, a student at NAU who is getting ready to graduate this year in international affairs. Wonderful person. Her questions concerned budget specific to the police, and then we segued into housing, and we tried to work through all those numbers. And I gathered from her questions that she was really interested in how we were going about resource allocation, especially with respect to our homeless and our mentally ill. And her questions were leading to the discussion about alternative approaches toward nonviolent misdemeanor offenses and things of that sort. And when that became evident, I said, we're having this discussion next Tuesday. I believe it's next Tuesday in front of council. I said, you should listen in and be a part of that. I expect that she will. And then we drifted from that into this whole thing about how can we, as a community, as a city, better engage our citizenry in establishing priorities that find their way into the budget process. And I said, well, that discussion happens to be occurring this evening, which it is right now. And so here we are on point with that. And the two, of course, do meld together, as do many things. So it underscores the importance of this topic, and it underscores the importance of what we're doing as a whole. And I think the Vice Mayor's comments of just a couple of minutes ago reflect that. What can we do to better outreach and really up our game and making sure that people are aware of these discussions and have an opportunity to engage. The survey, I think, is a very good tool for that. And I want to thank Sarah, Jack, and Shane and others who have been busy working on this. So thanks for indulging me in that little story I thought would be relevant to kicking this next part of the discussion off. In front of you on the slide, I want to point your attention to what is being stated here, and that is that due to recent points of discussion, such as the climate emergency declaration from last June, policing practices, which has been and remains an ongoing discussion and will be back in front of council next week, and equity considerations, which have been underlying many of the discussions that this council has had over some time and will continue. If we keep those recent discussion topics in mind, sustainability, police, policy, equity, we will start advancing now through the objectives and showing you some edits that we're suggesting. These are objectives that council formulated at its retreat a year ago in the fall. And these are staff's attempt to articulate some of the emerging considerations that have been in front of this council. So Sarah, if I can get you or whoever's driving this thing to advance, thank you very much. The very first slide in front of you concerns safe and healthy community. That is the community priority here, the council priority, and then you have in the little matrix there a list of the objectives. The edits are performed through strike-through, so the ones that have been edited show strike-through and new language. The other ones remain as they were articulated a year ago. So the one change on this first slide is where it used to say develop alternative diversion programs, now provides a little more substance to that. Provide alternative responses, resources, and programs for the most vulnerable populations. This, again, will be a topic that will be touched on next week, but it is now embedded within this, what will be going out in terms of the community input survey as an amended objective. Madam Mayor, I can go through a list of these slides. There's probably 4 or 5, and then answer questions, or I can take questions on the fly. What would be your preference?
I don't see any questions at this time, so we'll just continue on.
Very good, and thank you. And Sarah, if you can advance, please. The next key council priority is inclusive and engaged community. And then you have in front of you the objectives. And again, there's one suggested edit. Where the language of this particular objective used to state, enhance community outreach and engagement opportunities, staff felt it should be a little more assertive and a little bit more action oriented. So the new language would read as follows: enhance community involvement, education, and regional partnerships to strengthen the level of public trust. The other objectives would remain as you see them. Next slide, please. You're going to see a lot, Council, on sustainability, because frankly, there's been a lot of discussion about sustainability. And a lot of these edits come to you courtesy of our sustainability division. We have all looked over them and we think they're very appropriate. Under the council priority of sustainable, innovative infrastructure, there's one edit on this matrix that is suggested. The language used to read, identify smart traffic management and multimodal transportation and alternative energy opportunities. We would like to now clarify that to be a little more consistent with what council and specific to the emergency declaration have set forth as goals for the community, and that is to provide carbon neutral energy opportunity, or pardon me, provide smart traffic management and multimodal transportation and carbon neutral energy opportunities. So that language comports much more with the climate emergency declaration that was previously adopted by the council. Next slide, please. Staying with the theme of sustainability, we talk about robust and resilient economy. That's the priority here. And then underneath that, a list of 6 objectives and a few edits on this slide. The first is to the language that says embrace and invest in tourism opportunities to promote economic development. We would like to insert the word responsible in front of economic development. That arguably could be something that's attributed to the current pandemic and things that have arisen in recent months about responsible development, and it could actually touch on a number of things. Later, you see the objective of grow and strengthen a more robust, diverse, and resilient economy. The suggestion is to add on a clarifier that says, in ways that reflect community values. And then the third edit under the objective that currently reads, maintain and enhance an effective business recruitment, retention, and expansion program. We would like to modify that to read, maintain and enhance an equitable and effective business recruitment, retention, and expansion program throughout the community. This one, of course, based upon equity and inclusion. Next slide, please. Under the council priority of providing a livable community, we have a couple of suggested edits to the objectives. The current objective that reads, create a welcoming community through partnerships, neighborhoods, civic engagement, and resident participation. We would like to broaden that to read, create a welcoming community through partnerships, resilient neighborhoods, and civic engagement, taking out the qualifier of resident. And then the final edit on that, the current objective reads, provide educational opportunities for Flagstaff residents of all ages. We would like to modify that to read, provide equitable and inclusive educational opportunities for Flagstaff residents of all ages. Again, we're focusing on equity and inclusion. Is there another slide? Yes, environmental stewardship. Again, courtesy of our sustainability division, several edits. Under the objective of actively manage and protect all environmental and natural resources, we're suggesting a complete rewrite to read, promote, protect, and enhance a healthy and sustainable environment. Similar, under the objective that currently reads, implement sustainable building practices, alternative energy, transportation options. We would like to broaden that to read, implement sustainable building practices, comma, enhance waste diversion programs, comma, alternative energy programs, and multimodal transportation options, broadening that considerably. A rewrite is suggested for the objective that currently reads, provide environmental community outreach, education, and volunteer opportunities. We would like that to now read, engage community members through education and volunteer opportunities. Again, focusing on engagement rather than just the provision of outreach. Finally, we would like to add a new objective that reads as follows. Strengthen Flagstaff's resilience to climate change impacts on built, natural, economic, health, and social systems. So again, emphasizing the need to have resiliency across the spectrum in all of these systems. Okay, is there an additional slide? High performing governance remains as is. I'm not seeing any suggested changes on that. And if you could advance, please. I think that takes me to the end of my discussion. Sarah, is there anything else you would like for me to cover?
No, Greg, I think you covered it. And with council's approval, we will use those suggested changes in the community input survey when we launch that publicly.
And thank you. And Madam Mayor, if there are questions or comments, or if your colleagues on council feel like we're heading in a good direction, this would be a good time to hear that feedback. Thank you.
Council, I see Ms. Whelan.
You know, I would like to thank the city manager and staff and leadership for, I think last time I felt like I said I'm not being heard. It felt like I wasn't being heard. That's not the case today. I do feel heard. I support the track that you're on. And I just want to celebrate all of you in this endeavor. Deputy City Manager Shane Dilley, and I could go on, but clearly this has been a process, and where you're at right at this moment really puts me at ease that you're going in a direction that I think will be extremely beneficial to our community. And I just thank you all for your hard work. Thank you, Mayor.
And thank you, Councilmember Whelan. And if I can quickly jump in just to respond to that, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Whelan, you have been a bit of a very helpful and constructive critical eye throughout this process. And so I want to thank you for that view of how this has been occurring and more importantly, how it's been evolving. And I want to state very clearly that many of the things that we've been doing to improve this program have been at your request. So thank you for your perspective and thanks for giving us that very helpful, constructive advice along the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I think all the edits that are suggested are excellent, and I fully support them.
Mr. Odegaard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. I just say thank you. The darn mute button. I just want to say verbally nice job and thank you very much. Good job.
Okay. Mr. Aslan. Excuse me, Miss Salas, followed by Mr. Aslan.
Thank you. Love the updates. Thank you, Team Flagstaff. Thank you, City Manager.
Mr. Aslan?
Yes, I am fully supportive of these revisions. I'm so grateful for this process. So excited for the priority-based budgeting concept in total. I love the visionary work that our Deputy City Manager brought to the table on this way back when. And in the same way that our new City Manager did some good work before disaster struck on working out some contingencies with our budget, our budgeting, I really do see that there's some real nice synergy between the visionary work and the situation coming down the pike on us later. This new budgeting process is going to make it so much easier to dialogue with the community and to help the community prioritize how we want to resource our policing efforts, for example, among many other things, as was discussed. And I just want to acknowledge that there's some 2020 vision isn't always hindsight. Sometimes it's forward looking, and we had some of that going on this year. And I really appreciate that. Just wanted to throw it out there. Keep up the great work, and really excited to see this whole thing play out. And I think it's very helpful for our community. I think this whole process is, I'm struggling to find the right words here, but I really do feel strongly that this is a powerful, positive tool that we have at our disposal for making positive community change happen in a positive way that wasn't necessarily going to be in our toolbox. It took deliberate and effort and forethought to bring it about. And I can't say how grateful I am enough that my fellow council members and our city staff had the thoughtfulness and the foresight to bring this forward. And here we are. And it's really exciting to see all this coming down.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I see a comment by Mr. Dilly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council, and thank you for the overall support on these suggested changes. This is critical input for staff as we look to implement, the second phase of this public engagement, which is the survey portion. This modified language is, in fact, what will be sent out with your blessing tonight. What will be sent out in that actual survey. So your feedback tonight is critical on those suggested and recommended changes. moving forward from tonight's discussion, that's what we will be putting into the survey itself for the public to respond to. So thank you.
So thank you very much to city staff, the city manager, Mr. Dilley, and your complete team for working on this. We are looking forward as council to see how our community responds. So with that, we only have one more item left tonight, but before...
Yes? I'm sorry, Mayor, there's just a couple more slides on this presentation.
Okay.
If we could just get through those, that would be great. Thank you. So quickly, this last, we've heard the suggested changes to the objectives that will be included in that second phase of the engagement plan. The third phase of the plan really involves the community participation portion, and this will happen at a very critical step in the public. In the priority-based budgeting process, which is called the peer review process. Jack made reference to this earlier in his comments, but this step actually scores each of the programs and services against how well it aligns with our key community priorities. That said, with a small representative group of residents participating in this process, it will enable the public to directly influence how the city's programs and services are prioritized within the budgeting process each and every year going forward. More to come on what that step really looks like, Mayor and Council, for us here in Flagstaff, but we do have a successful model to look at as we develop what that looks like in the community of Fort Collins, Colorado, where they have integrated community participation in their scoring step for their budgeting process now for many years. So to end all of this with you, I'll quickly review the schedule going forward and what that looks like. So next slide, please. So with the input from council tonight on the revised objectives for, that our city manager just reviewed with us, staff plans to have the survey out to the community later this month. We expect to run the survey for several weeks, which places community responses being analyzed by staff towards the end of October. Staff will then present the results and the proposed final list of objectives to council at your November 10th meeting, which will be accompanied with a staff's recommendation for approval that night, which is very important for us to be able to move forward in the priority-based budgeting process. That then really tees us all up as staff and members of the public to complete that last step in the priority-based budgeting process in advance of the upcoming budget efforts, which really begin early January 2021. And those last steps are the costing and scoring of the programs and services, and that's really done by staff. And then there's that peer review step, which has that community participation factor in it, and that'll be completed by mid to late December. So that's the next steps and the schedule going forward, and that's the last slide. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about the schedule going forward.
Okay, I don't see any questions about the schedule going forward. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Okay, so we only have one more item left tonight, but before we take that item, I did want to just mention to everyone that tonight is Councilmember Solis's and Councilmember Aslan's birthday. And so, or today is, not tonight, but today. And we attempted to sing happy birthday to them earlier, but that did not work out as planned, so we will not try again. So with that, happy birthday to both of you, and we are adjourned.
Mayor, this is Stacey.
Thank you.
We do have a special meeting still with the consideration and approval of lease amendments.
I guess I should have turned the page. We do. So we're gonna go ahead.
Stacey, I was just going to jump in. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. I guess I should have turned the page. So we're going to go ahead and call the special meeting. Yeah, it's pretty sad. I was all excited. I was wondering why there was an extra page. My bad. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and call our special meeting to order. Again, provide notice that we have the option to recess into executive session for legal advice, should we so choose to do so. Do we have to have roll call again?
We do not.
Okay, we are now
that's
down.
not necessary.
Okay, we're now down to item number 2. This is consideration approval of lease amendments. This is the amendment of the Flagstaff Airport leases to extend the rent abatement for a minimum of 3 months to a maximum of 6 months due to ongoing economic impacts of COVID-19 pandemic, and to provide direction related to rent abatement on hangar permittees. Staff's recommended action is that we approve. We have 2 different things. We can approve the lease amendments to extend for 3 months, approve lease amendments to extend for 6 months, not approve, and then we need to direct the airport manager to what we would like for him to do. So with that, is this Barney?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members, Heidi Hansen, Economic Vitality Director. Tonight with me presenting will be Stacy Breckler-Nags, our Grants and Contracts Manager, and Barney Helmick, our Airport Director. And if you give us a second, Stacy's going to try to put up a quick PowerPoint. I was trying to share it just a second ago, and for some reason I'm having glitches. So let's see if Stacy is going to be able to share that. And if not, maybe Stacy Fobar could put it up.
I'm having the same problem. Hold on, unless Stacy Fobar has it available quickly.
That'd be great.
Yeah, if I may, this is Greg. Shannon Anderson is asking that if somebody can send it to her, she can also try to share it, please.
I don't know why.
I have it. Give me just a quick second.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you, Stacy. Sorry
Mayor?
about that. I keep getting a message.
And I got
Should we
knocked
sing
off
happy birthday?
PowerPoint. So
No.
in the meantime, happy birthday.
Yes, happy birthday. We are now looking at the slide. Thank you.
Thanks, Stacy. And Stacy, you could basically go to the next slide. And I'm going to turn this over to Stacy Breckler-Nags. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Stacy Breckler-Nags, Grants and Contracts Manager. Just a little history on this. Back in June, the council approved 6 months of rent abatement for all our airport tenants. That included also hangar tenants, everybody that had a lease out there and hangar tenants. And that rent abatement was approved April 1st through September 30th. So that is getting soon to expire here, September 30th of 2020. And then if we do next slide, that'll turn that over to Barney Helmick.
Yes, and this chart you'll see here shows our passenger enplanements that have departed from here this year. In the yellow, it's for this year, the blue is last year, and the gray is in 2018. And this is a very telling story here. You'll see that in 2018, which was just about an average year, we were doing 70,000 passengers leaving. Last year, we set a record at 123,957 passengers. And yes, I do have that memorized. This year, we have seen a 69% drop. Even with that, we are still slightly ahead of the national average, which is about 30, I think we're at about 38% and they're running about 31%. Our business partners are struggling. When the airline numbers go down, we have a drop in rental car sales. Our cafe is struggling even with the rent abatement. All of our business partners out here are struggling right now. That's why we are coming back with this. And we do not see a fast trend growing forward from this. Next slide, please.
Council, it's Heidi again. I wanted to just share an example of what's going on with the tenants that Barney just talked about. If you would take American Airlines as an example, they just announced, they announced a couple months back that they would be dropping up to 30 cities because of what's happened to the industry. And just the other day, they did make the announcement of 15 cities that they were dropping. Luckily, Flagstaff was not one of them at this time. So it goes a little bit further than just American Airlines, a commercial airline, having to make these decisions. We're hearing from United as well that they're struggling. But again, like Barney Helmick, our airport director, shared, this goes into a fact that we're having, there's a lack of pilots also that they're having issues with. There's layoffs happening to staff with TSA. The list just goes on. The industry is suffering. And so basically we have had our tenants reach out to us, both commercial tenants, our rental car tenants, and a few of our hangar tenants have expressed interest in having continued rent abatement. Actually, the only area that is doing better is actually with our hangar tenants. They did appreciate the last abatement, and they haven't had as many struggles getting back up to speed, especially those that use their planes for business, as we have seen with our airlines and our rental car agencies. Next slide.
Hello again, this is Stacy. What we're looking at is the costs to extend the rent abatement. Right now, staff's recommendation is to abate the rent for 6 months. The maximum amount approximately would be about $400,000 for hangar and general aviation revenues of approximately $220,000. For 3 months, if we went with that option, would just cut everything in half. And next slide. Depending on what council wants to do, we have for consideration, and actually before I jump into the slide, I did want to remind that council that we did receive 18 million in CARES Act that we have been using for operational costs that is helping alleviate when we did that first 6 months of revenue. And that was really based on, we received the 18 million in CARES Act because of commercial air service. So back to the options, we have 3 options. Option 1 would be to approve for a 3-month. Option 2 would be for 6 months. Option 3 would not approve at all. There is in the staff summary an option 4, and that is to allow the airport director to authorize hangar permits, because the council does the lease amendment, but the airport director does the abatements. So again, staff is recommending the 6 months. Next slide. And with that, we'll open it up to questions for the team and for council.
Okay, council. Any comments from council? If not, I need a motion. Mr. McCarthy? We'll go Mr. McCarthy and then Ms. Salas.
I move that we approve option 1.
Ms. Salas, is that a second?
I actually have another motion, which is for the 6 months.
Okay, is there a second for Mr. McCarthy's motion? Okay, I don't see a second for Mr. McCarthy's motion, so that dies.
I'll second that. I'll second that.
I'll third that.
Please put the options back up on the screen.
Okay, so there's a motion made by Mr. McCarthy and a second by Ms. Whelan. Is there any discussion? Ms. Solis, did you want to weigh in while you were looking at a different motion?
Well, in my mind, the option 2, and extending the grant abatement to up to 6 months, that will cover until March, which is a more realistic approach in terms of allowing the time and space and opportunities for our lessees to pivot their respective operations and businesses, and hopefully by March they could fly freely. Thank you.
I see City Attorney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to make sure with the remote meeting and a possible different motion, I think it'd be a cleaner vote if you call for a roll call vote on this, just to make sure we have the numbers right.
Okay. Ms. Whelan.
Thank you, Mayor. This doesn't, I just suggest that we do it at a 3 month at a time. And I would even entertain that the added monies going to the hangars be just 3 months and that be ended.
I see a Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. And I support what Councilmember Whelan was saying. And, I think we're just taking all this one step at a time with COVID and this new world that we're living in. And we just might see a shift in the way travel occurs. We like to hope that things get back to a normal state of which we were at before. But I think we should take this one step at a time and just do 3 months. I'm grateful for the COVID funding that we received for our airports, and happy to see it go to this cause. But yeah, I support 3 months for now, but I'm also wondering what the future of aviation and travel looks like. Thank you.
Mr. Odegaard?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm comfortable with option 1 right now. I want to thank Stacy for explaining the CARES dollars that we received. It's federal funded dollars for airports, and the City of Flagstaff is blessed enough to offer a commercial airline service for our community. And so those CARES dollars was, to continue operations. One thing is the commercial airlines, where, for example, Deer Valley down outside of Phoenix doesn't have commercial airline service. And I believe they got like less than $200,000 for their operations for the airport. And this is one way these dollars are to be used, is so airlines can continue to offer a service for our community. And so, thank you.
I'm going to go to Mr. Aslan. Did I have a comment?
Yeah, I'm supportive of option 1 at this time. I think it's important for us to take this one step at a time here. Thank you.
So I would just want to weigh in and say that I'm actually very supportive of option 2. The reason being is it's interesting how we just had a conversation about downtown parking, and we realized that the winter months are going to be very difficult. We as a city have worked very hard to build up and uplift our airport and make it a regional airport. The reason why we got the $18 million for our airport was very specific to the fact that we had 2 airlines. Now, I do understand that there's the idea that travel is going to be different and people are going to travel differently in the future. I don't disagree with that. I think that airlines, however, will always be around. And I do also believe that maybe they will be doing business differently.
Yes, please.
And so I look at this and I think to myself, if we were trying to stabilize our asset, which is our airport, and try to make sure that our airline tenants, as well as the people who have have their private airplanes, if we're trying to make sure that they are going to survive the rest of this COVID issue, the holiday season where people most likely will not be traveling, and then into the next travel season, which is in March, that would be 6 months. And so I just would encourage council to think about that. So I'm in supportive of the option number 2. So with that, I don't see any other comments. Our city attorney.
Mayor.
Yes.
It's Heidi again. I hope that it's okay for me to chime in on what you just said. It is important for the council to know everything. And one of the reasons why Stacy said staff was recommending option 2, just to give you full disclosure, is that we are going into our winter season and our employments are our worst in our winter season because we just came off our peak season. Reason why winter is bad is because the weather gets bad and we have to have days where we aren't visible and we can't fly. And so the reason why we were offering option 2 or saying that we're favoring option 2 is to get us through that winter season where we know our employments are not going to continue to grow right now. They're going to probably look pretty bad. And this way it gets us through that season and it lets the airlines get through that season to our spring season, which is much better. So I just feel like I need to give you full disclosure on why we would even recommend option 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. So I don't see any other discussion from council or any other comments. I would say that our city attorney has asked for a roll call vote. I want to be very clear to council as well as people who are listening to the conversation that my vote is going to reflect the fact that I think that this should be for 6 months and not for 3 months, given all the reasons why I've stated and why city staff has also said the same. So with that, there was a motion made by Mr. McCarthy and a second by Ms. Whelan to go with option number 1, which was to approve the COVID-19 rent abatement for an additional 3 months only to all airport tenants. Not seeing any further discussion, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mayor Evans?
I am a no.
Vice Mayor Shimoni?
Yes.
Councilmember Aslan?
Yes.
Councilmember McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilmember Odegaard?
No.
Councilmember Salas?
I'm a no. I'll go for 6 months.
Councilmember Whelan?
Yes.
So I believe that motion has passed with option number 1. Okay, thank you. We are now down to item number 3. And item number 3 is public participation. City Clerk, do we have any public participation at this time?
We do not.
Okay, we're now down to informational items to and from Mayor, Council, and the Council or City Manager future agenda item requests. Let's start tonight with the Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council and city staff and the community. That was, I think, a really good meeting we just had this evening and afternoon, and I feel really good about all the things we discussed. A couple quick updates. I was part of a town hall today with Secretary of State Katie Hobbs, along with our county recorder Patty Hansen. The town hall was hosted by the Arizona Students Association, and you can watch it on Facebook. It was a great conversation, and we're looking at breaking records in this upcoming election, and it's very exciting. For folks who know students or who are of a student age, if you want to vote in town, you have to go through quite a bit of hurdles, and that's a issue, but that is the reality we're living in here in Arizona. So you have till October 5th to do that, and so reach out to the county recorder if you'd like to move forward with that. And make that happen. And I just want to give a shout out again to the Black Lived Experience forums that have been occurring and all the partners that have been at the table making that happen. The first 2 conversations were excellent. The next one is on Thursday at 5:30 p.m. I hope you all join us. And then the following one is on Saturday at 4:30 p.m. And trying to think, I believe that's all I had. I just also wanted to say express gratitude to the county and to our city leadership and to our city manager for a good meeting yesterday, a good and challenging conversation, and a happy birthday to Councilmember Regina Salas and Councilmember Austin Aslan. Thank you all so much, and have a good night.
Mr. Aslan.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
as a point of personal privilege on my birthday, I have nothing to add right now.
Love it. Welcome, Mr. McCarthy.
Well, I already had my birthday a couple months ago, so nothing tonight.
I'm going to go to Mr. Odegaard.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Ms. Salas.
Well, thank you all for the birthday wishes, and fly Flagstaff all the time.
Miss Whelan.
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
City Manager, do you have anything else to add to the conversation?
Madam Mayor, Council, no, I don't. Happy birthday to our colleagues on Council. I hope you have a little time to enjoy it yet this evening. Thank you.
Okay, so once again, just happy birthday to Ms. Salas and Mr. Aslan, and thank you to all of city staff. And we are just verifying this. We are completely adjourned. Okay, we are.
You're good, Mayor.
Yes, we're adjourned. Okay.
Good night, all.
Thank you all.
Good night.